Islam.
Therefore, when you have to teach somebody, you realize that they don't understand in public, in corporate, or natural and artificial. What happened, the suspension of. Once somebody come to you with these questions, instead of you spending all your energy with them, you can just tell them to go research and go read that as well. So case laws is important for you to go study. Back in the day, before they had internet advances what they have now, we used to go to the libraries a lot and study this stuff. We had to physically go to the library and study all day long. We had to ask librarians for information on certain subject matters. We had to go over to take the physical books, go over to the copying machine and put a quarter or whatever into the copying machine and make copies of these things. And this is why, we're in the process of moving now. And it's right on key, but, we got so much information and junk. It's junk now because we don't have to utilize it. We still got floppy disks. Back before they had flash drives and had CDs. We got a bunch of floppies and stuff. We got attics full of this stuff. And we just sitting there laughing and reminiscing and going over all this old information that we gathered when we, first started dealing with this information. But nowadays, we don't have to do that anymore. Everything is right in Google. You don't have to leave your home, and what it it made us more lazy. Those who already have done it, already had it. But for the new ones coming in, and new people who need to be educated, they don't really understand, and they don't really take advantage of what they have today. And to the point where it's so easy for them to get information, they become lazy with it, and they just take it for granted. Exactly. And this is important, but Islam family, we have our Canaanland family online on the site now. Islam, everything good? Can y'all hear us?
Yeah, we're in there. Your head's just cut off a bit. You can tilt the camera, you can tilt the screen back a little bit. You're cut off.
Say it again.
When you're standing, your head's cut off. But we're recording it on camera, so we can upload.
All right, we'll fix that now. Thank you.
All right.
Just a little help. Put the head back on. You can't just incline more because they said our heads can't come out.
Or just back up a little.
Just maybe we can. I got it. If we can just.
It just has to come up like this. That's all.
Oh, put it back so we can slide just underneath. That way we can go back. Alright, then you can get the incline with you. A little bit more to the incline. A little bit more. Islam, we're gonna work it out, family.
Yeah, Islam, no worries, do your thing.
No, we're gonna keep going until
we can hear you. We can hear you. Go ahead, do your thing.
Alright, sound alright?
Yeah.
Alright, Islam, family. Alright, so to continue, and I guess we will recap now. Yes. Islam, everybody on board? Islam. This is part of the new technology we was talking about. We have several different locations right now simulcasting, and we're going to try to do this as Grand Sheikh Kudro. This was his thought that we'll do the simulcasting of the meetings every second Sunday of the month. So we give him honor as well for looking for innovative ways to collaborate our families, our meetings, our information, etc. Islam. So the subject matter of today is going to be dealing with UCC, explaining what they are. We're also going to be addressing the obligation of the County Recorder's Office. We're also going to be addressing the misclassification of the race. And not just having knowledge or saying that we know what this means, but also applying this to our everyday struggle. Because these are the major components right now that's really stagnating us from exercising our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And also, these are a lot of the questions and the phone calls we get every day of the week pertaining to these issues. So we want to kind of address this. I don't want to say for once and for all, because we're going to keep addressing it. We have to. But we at least want to address it with further information that we can research, and that way when we come back to the table, we'll pass the dimension, because there's many different dimensions we're speaking about. Islam? Islam. Yes. Yes.
Tell me, go ahead.
Islam, is that better?
Yeah, you're good, Mark. Give thanks.
All right, Islam.
All right, please.
Yes. Islam. Islam. All right, so starting off, I want to get into the Constitution. Now, the Constitution is for the Free National Republic of the United States of America. Terminology is everything. Language is everything. This is the terminology or the phraseology that Prophet Noah Ali used. So we want to examine why did he use it and what was he making reference to. We understand United States have several different meanings, just like other words have several different meanings. But where we getting tricked at is not understanding what United States pertains to what conversation. Yes. So for all activity that your so-called government is making reference to, when they say United States, they're always making reference to the U.S. Now this is elementary information, but the U.S. is an abbreviation. And it's not an abbreviation for the United States of America. It's a separate jurisdiction. The U.S., whenever you see an the Constitution of the United States doesn't support abbreviations. That's one thing you gotta know. So if someone want to trick you to saying they're abbreviating it just because they want to eliminate ink or writing, then you recognize that as a fraud. And you let them know that you can't sign anything or agree to anything that has an abbreviation because it's unconstitutional. So when Brother C and Bey make reference to never speak off the record of your Constitution, you gotta understand speaking is not just verbally, but also in writing or in contract form. So if you're signing a document that's off the record of the Constitution, then you need to re-examine that contract. You need to renegotiate that contract, or you need to reword that contract. We're also going to be talking about templates, forms that's provided for you, i.e. Social Security forms, i.e. forms in the nature of an appeal. We're going to court. The judge or the magistrate is going to render a judgment against you. Then he says you have 30 days to appeal it. So now what we'll do is he sends us out front to the receptionist office, and they got the forms already on the desk for you to appeal. You got to understand that that's color. So we're going to get into templates, forms, common law writs. For those of us that's taking notes, you write these things, and even if we can't address everything, you at least have it written down where you can go back over it, and we address it on the next session. And I've talked about the misrepresentation of the race. All right? Write these things down, because you might have to bring me back to some of these things. So dealing with the county recorder's office. The county recorder is a elected officer. Are the Constitution of what?
United States of America.
No.
Nope.
Understanding structural law. The state's constitution. Now this is where we gotta get into being statesmen. Alright, understanding we're more scientists, we're statesmen, etc. We have an obligation to the state republic. The state republic makes up the United States of America. There cannot be a United States of America, and that's, I'm talking republic now, without a state body politic. Please, if someone don't understand that, raise your hand.
Get it clear now.
Not necessarily, but it's a good question. I'm going to address that too. The state's government, like I'm going to use the term New Jersey State Republic. New Jersey has not been the organic name of this body politic or the geographical area of the state. But it's the doing business name now that we go by. But New Jersey still has a state republic. A state republic just means people. Public means people. So the state's republic is the government. The people of the state is the government. The collective people within the geographical territory, that's another word you want to write down. I'm saying it because I know it to say that, but write it down the way I say it. You have to speak like that. Because to stay within the venue of the public, or the republic, you have to stay within the venue of a territory. So New Jersey State Territory, i.e. New Jersey State Republic, one and the same. State is just a reference to the territory, but territory is an older term than state. So for modern day usage and language, we say the word state. But to bring your forefathers back into the equation, you have to implement the language of your forefathers. So you mix the language of your forefathers in with the language of the modern day usage just so that everybody's on the same page. You follow me on that? That's why we get the term Moorish American. Even though American is a corruption of Moroccan. But Moorish is more ancient than American. So Drew Ali strategically worded our nationality as Moorish American.
That's right.
He said, why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants, so he brought in the descent. Moorish is your descent. He said, and you were born in America. Even on a higher understanding, we know we're not born in America because of what America really represents. But for modern day speaking, communication, we have to word it that way. So Moorish American is a term, a language, a phraseology, i.e. a modern day nationality that was created by our own. This is important because some people don't understand. They think Moorish American is an ancient term in an ancient nation. We're descendants of an ancient nation. But times evolve and geographical areas have changed. People have changed, their names have changed. So modern day speaking, Drew Ali formulated a name, a nationality, and a body politic best suitable for our growth. That's important because understanding that it's not encumbered. No one had leave on it.
Exactly.
It wasn't an enslaved nation. It's never been enslaved.
Right.
Negro, black, and colored has been enslaved. Even Moroccan has been enslaved. Morocco has been enslaved. The Moroccan Empire came to a halt. You understand what I'm saying here? So it has experience and history with it during the time of slavery. But what did he say in Acts 6? This is a new what? Era of time now. And now he's saying we doing business a new way, paraphrasing. So he gave us something that was not encumbered.
Yes.
And did not have lien on it, and nobody had any type of stronghold over it. So we started this all fresh in 1928. And he's a prophet, therefore, like you said, he was ordained by the great God of the universe to do that. It wasn't by chance. That doesn't mean that anybody has the authority to just do that. You understand? That's not something that's put in the hands of someone who thinks that they're a scholar. They think like, you know, you got these so-called leaders these days, so-called black leaders, I'm gonna call them, because they're dead mentally. But, you know, how they want to be the spokesman and the representative of quote-unquote our people. You got to understand that the land is full of false prophets whose mission is to do what? Fleece the people. So now we're dealing with a prophet which was ordained by the great God of the universe. This is true and divine. And he came because of the situation that we're speaking about.
Yes, I'm glad you said that about Morris America. This is what the prophet meant by this passage in the book. It says, that's what I thought I was going to say it then. But Morris American is a Moorish. He said, praise the Lord, you came back. He said, if you doubt that I, the prophet, have brought you the truth, I'm paraphrasing. I know to those that know law with an intelligent tongue, and they will be glad to give you a favorable reply, because they will be glad to see that I brought you out of darkness into marvelous light. In conjunction with what the man Sheik said, Moorish American, the ones that understand law know that Moorish is ancient, it's before, it's Aboriginal and indigenous, before this was American. So they understand, you say Moorish American, descendants of Moroccans and born in America. They already know that you are the true Aboriginal and indigenous people by law before they renamed it Al-Moroccan and took the L out and called it America.
Thank you. And a key point that you said, well, you missed it because you was paraphrasing, but I'm going to say it because it's important. He said, if you doubt my redemption process is right for my people, then go to those that know law. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that back up, wording it that way, is because there's a lot of power within what he said. Because what he brought us is a redemption process to redeem us from our physical and our mental slavery. This is very important. So he gave us the information, the tools, the understanding, the language, etc., what we needed to redeem ourselves. He says, I gave you what it takes or what you need to save a nation. Now you take that and go save yourself. So once again, you got to understand it as a redemption process. Two, you got to understand his redemption process is a little different from other redemption process. And this is where we're getting tricked. Because a lot of Moors have accepted other redemption processes, i.e., back to the UCC. Now, you also had what we call the Patriot Movement. Started a couple decades ago from Europeans out west. You got to understand this. When they started coming out with the UCC, and they called it the redemption process. So it was a vehicle for themselves to break away from their understanding the Clearfield Doctrine. They studied that too. Understanding that the law or the assumed representatives went from the public to the private side. They got hip to that and realized that they were fertilized as well. So what they did was try to redeem themselves. And they started a movement referred to as the Patriot Movement. And within that, they came up with information that they needed based on their language, based on their status, based on their descent. And they referred to the packages that they gave their people as the redemption process. Now, because it used the language of sovereignty and things of that nature, traveling versus driving and all of the similar information to what we deal with, But because they refer to it as the redemption process and they dealt with sovereignty, a lot of Moors have been attracted to that redemption process. So what you have over the years is you have Moors mixing the Moorish redemption process with the Patriot redemption process. So you start getting teachers and lessons now that is a mixture of both. And then now the Moors take the redemption process from the Patriot movement, try to incorporate it with the redemption process from the Prophet, and realize why they have problems.
Wow.
Because there's a difference of status. And this is going to bring us into the UCC. We're not at that point yet, but that has everything to do with it. You have a question?
Just a statement, the Prophet addressed it, like he spoke about state republic and state territory. You know what I'm saying? This is why he brought us back to Morris America, because the government is expressed by primary your states government, speaking on behalf of the national republic, because all the states are uniform and transparent. The process about what the nation said, the three or three national names are recognized by the government of the world, according to the Sin government that you did there. So you can't claim to be part of this nation, not belonging to a state republic within the nation.
Islam. And also, brother, going back to your question, dealing with the state republic, the people of the state, and it's within the territory of New Jersey, talking about the geographical landmass, right? The native people and the citizen of New Jersey constitute New Jersey State Republic. Now, within us, the people, through our chosen representatives, is the government that we refer to as the government seats, or the seats of government. So the way it's designed is we within the people of the state choose or elect people that we want to govern our affairs. And we set up departments of governments, checks and balances, to assure that our rights is protected and secured. That's the way the jure government is supposed to work. That is a republic, which is guaranteed to every state within the union. That can't be changed. So the state is us first, before the United States of America, in that concept that we call it, was the states. And actually some of the states, before they became a union, were actually countries and not states.
That's right.
So this is going back to the history and the science of government, where some of your larger western states were countries, as far as Texas,
That's right.
California. These were countries at one time. In later years, after the adoption of the Constitution, and they tried to push this union concept, after the Continental Congress was and federations was formed, what they did was each state agreed to be a part of the union. So you had the several states at one time, and went through many different transitions. But there cannot be a centralized government, or what you call a national government, without the individual states. The individual states within the territory had their own government body politic. So they had their own state constitution. Follow me now? So now each state's constitution, the supreme law of the land, before the United States of America Constitution became the supreme law of the land. And this is why a lot of the states rebelled against becoming a part of the Union. Because at that time, the states, within their administration, were practicing slavery. And they really, their state citizens were their wards. This is even before this United States as you know it. So the sovereignty of the state's representatives couldn't be checked and balanced by anyone outside of the state because they had the supreme authority to rule. And no one had any type of authority or jurisdiction to come into the state and say, what you're doing with your slaves is unconstitutional. Or how you dealing with state's business is unconstitutional. So your slaveholders at that time, which i.e. your plantations, mainly your bigger plantations, were your representatives of the state. And nobody can come in and regulate and control what they were doing with their, i.e. state citizens, i.e. wards. So therefore, when the centralized government started to critique it and try to come in and say we're going to form this union, the states were saying, no, we don't want to be a part of that. That's why Drew Ali was telling you about the North and the South coming into unit, placing the Southerners that were at that time without constitutional body of power. What constitutional body of power? You got to understand Drew Ali and what he was really sent for. But this is what he's trying to tell you. That's why he says, I traveled in the South. I examined the conditions there. You understand? Because they didn't come on board till later, from a constitutional perspective. This is why he says that if you have family in the South, you better get them out of there. Islam.
Always.
Sheikhs, we need your expertise again. Islam, so. Islam. So he said if you have family in the South, you better get them out of there.
That's right. The destruction going to start.
Yeah. It's because of the migratory rate of the people in the South. Because of the generations of unconstitutional practice and mentality and vibration in the South. So it caused the ethers and the vibration in the South to be much denser than it was in the North. You gotta understand that the longer, regardless if we're enslaved by force or not, the everyday life cycle of slavery causes the vibrations to get more dense. It affects vegetation, it affects the water, it affects everything within nature. It's a domino effect. So therefore, not just the people are slow, and you know how everybody say, oh, you're from the South, you slow? Or they the last people to get stuff, they the last people to get caught up on the trend and this, that, and the third. We say that, but don't know why. The vibratory rate is a lot slower in the South. No disrespect, not taking it personally, even our online membership is in the South. We need to understand, not from an emotional perspective, but from a scientific perspective, why things are the way they are down there. And it's up to us to evolve a little bit in order for them to evolve. Now, the quicker we advance, the quicker they advance. You understand? So it's a domino effect, but it's also a national responsibility for everybody to help each other out, because we're still in the South as well. And the reason why, because the North and the South is actually one. It's like the reflection of the higher self and the lower self. So what occurs is, no matter the condition of the rest of our people, we're still stagnated in growth and development as a nation based on what the rest of the vibration is up to. So we have a responsibility to simultaneously grow together. So
This these north, south, east, west. You know that north and south have further extension. I'm saying it deals with winter and summer solstice. When they're dealing with north and south, with some further, things die. Not just dealing with you speaking about the South. The South is dealing with the lowest hemisphere, like you said, the lowest South.
True.
So a lot of the things that happen to deal with the lower nature or the carnal nature of man.
true, it's a polarity. Islam. And also dealing with that in the polarity of the North and the South being polarized, you're starting to see now this polar shift of the weather and the seasons. So you got to understand that too, and even from an economic perspective, you're going to see a polar shift. So once again, these are subjects that we'll discuss in later times.
Yes.
But we're just throwing it out there now just because we're on topic. So going back to the state, this is how important the state is. And this is where Moors are also getting beat up at. Because you have to be a state citizen first in order to be a citizen of the United States of America. So what's happening or what's occurring is when we have an issue of identification, and we just presenting Moorish identification to say that we're citizens of the United States of America, what they're saying to you is, show me government ID. Listen to what I'm saying. Although that we are the organic body politic, organic government, organic nation, and we should not need any type of authentication from or identification from any other governmental agency or corporate agency. But the fact that we were in this state of servitude and we are repairing our nation, we have to build the credibility of our government, i.e. our nation, again, to the point where we can stand on our own and we don't need to show them any type of joiner, we call it, or relationship to validate our position as free nationals here in our own land. Listen what I'm saying closely. So we have to really crawl before we walk. I want you to understand this. Whether you do it or not, it's up to you, but at least have the understanding on what's being said to you. So the state's government, New Jersey State Republic, has its own constitution. We are citizens of the state, of the territory on where we domicile. First. And from that, we're part of the Union, or the United States, which means the different states collectively coming together to form a national agreement, which is referred to as the United States of America. So now the citizens in New Jersey are united with the citizens of California. From a constitutional perspective, this is what the divine warning was saying, is the citizens of all free national governments, according to their what? Their national constitution, are all one family, bearing what? One free national name. The corruption within this is the free national name now, because they refer to this as the United States of America, which is not a divine title of the government in which we live. But that's something that is going to be corrected down the line. But you got to understand how many generations Drew Ali wrote ahead of himself, where he was preparing us for something that was prematurely done. But understanding the law, you automatically know what Drew Ali was up to because you understand law.
You know where he's going with it.
Exactly, because where he's going is where we have to take it. It's not for him to take it to those extremes. He brought it to our attention. And within ourselves, we have to choose our own representatives to do this. But going back to the relationship of the state. So New Jersey, and we abandon the state a lot. And this is our problem. We have to take back the state. So New Jersey State, the Moors in New Jersey, I'm speaking about the Moors here, again, this same universal rule will apply to Moors in other states. But giving you a quick example, the politics within the state of New Jersey, Moors are supposed to be adapting. And wherever there's a governmental forum pertaining to the politics of the states, Moors should be present. Even though we know that they're dealing with the corporate side of things and not dealing with the republic at all, if they're not dealing with it, who is? It's supposed to be us. So they choose to go private, but we shouldn't. Once they step out, they're really doing us a favor. So we're supposed to stay within the republic or the public. We're supposed to stay within the common law venue. Just because they decide to go elsewhere, that has nothing to do with us. Our mistake is we keep trying to go private as well. And that's the problem. When we do that, we recuse ourselves from the republic. So therefore, it's neutralized.
You need yourself as easy pickings.
So when the concept of government arises, there's really no one to step into place because they abandoned their post and we never stepped up to the post. So therefore, is laying dormant out there and nobody's activating the republic side of things from the state first. This is why we don't have a national representation pertaining to the republic, because we have not even got on the state level. You got to be able to be fluent in your state affairs before you can be fluent in national affairs. All your people sitting in Congress, your vice president, even the president, before they can be eligible for these positions, they first got to be very active on a state level. All of them are ex-statesmen from a perspective of holding some type of seat in the state. First, state senators and judges, to hold some type of seat first, and they have to be involved in the political affairs of the state. They have to have good reputation with the state in order for them to step out and get to the national side of things. So you got to understand your state is talking about representation and leadership. So Prophet Noble Drew Ali was preparing us to take our place in the what? Affairs of men. Which means we got to start off from the bottom, from local government, and work our way up to national and then international government. But we as Moors, our ego pop out, we want to jump to the Hague, we want to go to United Nations when they have meetings, and we want to walk around like we the leaders of something, and we don't even understand states law first. But then we want to understand why they just laughing at us. You know, Brother Jamal first.
What are your thoughts on us getting involved in the municipalities, the local government?
Good question, because we're going to talk about that too. So brothers and sisters didn't hear him. He said, what are my thoughts about getting involved with the municipal government? Now, municipal government is actually quasi-government. Please write that down for everybody who doesn't understand that. Write it down anyway. Get more fluent in it. Municipal government. They refer to it as municipal government. But municipal government is a quasi-government, i.e. quasi-corporation. Municipal is a corporation. It means corporation. It's not a government at all. However, this is tricky, and you can back me up on this. However, like I said, you have to start off at the bottom because the experience is needed from the localist level of things to the highest level of things. So we should be involved in municipal affairs as well, because we're still subject to municipal affairs. You can't avoid it, even though it's quasi is a reality. So you just got to know how to deal with it. Meaning that you have a mayor, you have a board of directors. There's a way to work that as well. Your municipal courts is where we're most involved at. We hardly go to county court, and we hardly go to state court, and we hardly go to the Supreme Court. Am I right? Right. Although we need to understand that jurisdiction, so when we do go, we understand the terminology in the venue. But our most encounters or interactions are with the municipal quasi-government. So therefore, we must be involved in that, study it, understand its rules, regulations, its codes, etc., its seats, because it still has seats, its color. But it's no different from state. In federal, they're color too. So we can't just deal with one color and not deal with the whole color. We got to understand, because the federal and the state backs up the municipality. And once you start getting into this, you'll understand that a lot better. And then when you start doing your suits and complaints, you will know who's in collusion to what. Because they have to be a party to it. When you talk about notice to the principal, it's notice to the agent, notice to the agent, notice to the principal, then you'll know what parties are subpoenaed into this issue. So you got, I'm going to get to that, I'm going to just address this one, then let you. So when you go into the municipality, you have town hall meetings. You have Department of Taxation on a municipal level, which you definitely need to know about. If you own property, then you need to understand the taxation comes from a municipal perspective, or i.e. city. And then you have a county board of taxation, where you're getting taxed on a municipal level, and you're getting taxed on the county level. So just understanding who's who, understanding how everything works. We're still subject to what the municipal rules and regulations are. You have what they call police officers, right? They're hired by the municipality. They're not hired by the government, which makes them corporate agencies or security guards for the municipality. I'm not saying that so you can disrespect them. I'm saying it so you can understand who they are and what their position is. They're private security agents. They work for the municipality. Also, the magistrates that sit in the courtrooms of the municipalities are not judges. They're not appointed. They're hired by the city or the county, the city or the municipality. They work directly for the municipality. They're hired to do so. They're on the payroll. They receive compensation for sitting in the courtroom and issuing out fines and time for traffic violations and city ordinances and everything else. They're hired to do so, which eliminates them from the title and seat of a judge. Judges don't do that. That's your other difference between magistrate and judge. You need to understand that.
Republican and democracy, this is where we rate that so the people will know the distinction.
So this is all dealing with state affairs first, because the municipality sits within the jurisdiction of the state. So we definitely need to be fluent on that department. Using the word interchangeably, the city, i.e. township, i.e. municipality. Also termed borough, some areas. All private corporations. They also refer to as public utilities. Why? Because they are a private corporation whose charter and mission statement is to provide a service for the public. That's referred to as a public utility. No different from New Jersey Gas, New Jersey Electric, whatever, what's the electric company? Jersey Central Power and Light.
McDonald's.
They're corporations, but what their job is to do, or they say they do, provide a service for the public. They definitely monopolize the situation, but understanding this, we don't have a competition and option on what gas provider we can go to, because it's monopolized. It's a private corporation, but they got their hands in quote-unquote assumed government seats. What means that they're getting compensated is they're pretty much the city government or government period, disguising themselves as a corporation, but really they're on a higher up level. But they can't say that because they will nullify their position. Because government is not supposed to get involved with these type of services. So they have to set up these private corporations within the corporation to provide services which they cannot directly be involved in. You understand that? That's why they set up DBA names and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because they don't want to directly be affiliated with the reputation of a service, but they got their hands in it some type of way. So you don't have a choice on where you can go because there's no competition to it. And if you try to we try to set up our own gas company right now, we'll have some major problems.
Exactly.
It won't be just the gas company coming after you. You're going to see they're going to be higher ups coming after you because they all got their hands in it. That's another subject, just letting you know where we're going with the state citizenship. Brother Cliff?
That's clearly a violation of delegation of authority. And also speaking about when you spoke about knowing your position of power, because chapter 29, Table Magistrate and Subject said, thou is the favors of heaven. You just agree the magistrate and subject. They're magistrates, but they're subjects of the people. It says, thou is the favors of heaven, without sons and equal, have raised the sovereign power.
Who agreed to raise the sovereign power and set as a ruler over ourselves. That's Republic talk.
Republic talk. It says, thou is the favor of heaven, our sons are equal, I raised them to sovereign power. Remember the density put the trust far more than height in the United States, according to the things in height black facing. Knowing that your trust that was placed upon you oversees dignity of your states that so-called came based off your own ownership, but your honor comes back by way of the people.
And
Chapter 29.
Yes, the key to that is the sons of thy equals. Remember, Act 4, with us being part and parcel to what this government means that we are equal. We are equal. We have an equal share in government. Understand this. Because people who think that they're part and partial don't understand that partial is not equal to. Partial is less than equal. So if you're less than equal, then that eliminates you from a voice in governments.
Right.
Once again, if you understand law, then you will know what the prophet said and what he didn't say.
Talking law? Yes.
Very simple.
Yes, and why he said.
Look it up legally, lawfully.
Right.
Also, the sons of thy equal, on whom we have agreed. Agreed means consent.
There's your republic.
The seats of the government is vested in the consent of the governed.
The governed.
The governed is us. We are agreeing through consent to put someone in power or in position or in seats of government to govern us. It doesn't make them higher than us. It really makes them subordinate to us. Exactly. They become a public servant. We become a public servant. As soon as we take that title of leader or whatever we claim it, we become a public servant. So it doesn't matter if we're in a position that seems to be rankful over other people. Just remember that the people are the government and we become subordinate to them. I.e., that's how the government is supposed to operate. So when they sit there and be arrogant about what we're asking or telling them to do, i.e. county recorders, the county recorder works for us. That's my point. The county recorder's office is only put there based on the ancient demands of our forefathers. Well, they created that office as a venue for the public to file public and legal notices. So therefore, it's an avenue for us to notify the public of any type of business that we're doing. Versus property, whatever we choose to do, a vested interest in anything. Any change of address, change of status, whatever we want. It was the county clerk's office, and also they used the post office for that communication in the past. Where post offices used to have bulletin boards, back in the common law days I'm speaking about, where the people used to go down to the post office and post things on a bulletin board because the people didn't get mail delivered to their house back in the day. The post office was a place you went and picked up your mail. When the U.S. bureaucratized it, they created what the Postal Service. And now the Postal Service comes to your house, drive around in those little cars, and stick stuff in your mailbox. And the mailbox itself is unconstitutional. You need to understand that, because when you're dealing with the Republic, you're also dealing with the term sovereignty. It's all related, being a free national. There's an activity and a behavior, a way you do business as such. And not just they termed us Negro, Black, and Colored and enslaved us that way, but they enslaved us through behavior and activity and lifestyle. So a lot of our modern day lifestyles is catered towards enslavement. So we might verbally say things that's related to sovereignty, but our actions are still related to enslavement. So if they don't get us one way, they get us another way. You understand? So you got to follow this whole practice when it comes to being a free nation. Islam, Sheikh is nigga? Islam.
The municipalities, although quasi as nature and function, can be used for good in regards to being a public service. It's necessary, just like you say, because someone has to balance the book of those that are contracted, those who have not complained.
Yes.
And becomes a public servant, and we're able to stay on the fact, meaning that they actually will have two hats in their office. You know, someone has to handle the affairs of those who are contracted, those who are not complained, and handle the affairs of those who are have inherited the right to it. Meaning that they have assume jurisdiction over the taxation of the property or land, which is unconstitutional. So when we talk about municipalities and court systems, the court system will always establish.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily have to deal with that municipality at all. You can completely not deal with that at all, because they don't allow them to be a public servant for us as taxpayers. Because any situation or cause of action, or whatever we say, any subject matter pertaining to an improper person, a national is outside the jurisdiction, no question, and is out of jurisdiction.
Correct.
Deal with. They don't have a tax, so we wouldn't need them for that. Because there's no tax. So we really involved that whole office for us.
For us personally.
For us personally. So my point is that although the office is quality and constitutional, is there's a purpose for those who have contracted with them, and meaning Asiatics that have not proclaimed a nationality.
Yes.
You know, so we still have to govern the affairs of the servers and those who need to be governed. But the problem that we face is that us having to prove or having them to honor our status as one that they don't have the authority to make judgment over to tax. And that's the issue. So if we can clear up and deal with that issue altogether, I mean, but that's the whole fight is getting the status acknowledged and dealt with in proper constitutional revenue. Right.
Yeah.
But the municipalities really don't have a place for us, and if we dissolve the whole office,
You know what I see to that? Islam. And this is my, and we can go further into it. The municipality is providing a service for the community, which some of it is a needed service. Although they're taking advantage of it, and because they're providing the service, they're also using that to monopolize it.
Right.
I'm talking about us general, not just Moors.
Right.
I'm talking about just the citizen general.
To monopolize it.
Now, here's the trick. Because they also enslave us or keep us a part of that wardship through the services they provide for us, and we accept them. So by accepting certain services, you automatically put yourself to the category as the debtor or as the wardship.
is that a threat to the right?
Yes, it's definitely under threat to wrestling. Once you get conscious of it and you, like you said, you manipulate it to work for you by proclaiming yourself, declaring yourself properly, notifying your agencies, and dealing with them under different terms and conditions.
What I mean is, you do that, and then you provide that service without their need to provide that service.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm
They
getting
don't
at.
allow you to even take care of that service.
Well, we can minimize and eliminate the services on a municipal level. Like Brother Irwin, giving him honor. Brother Irwin here does not accept the service of the municipality to come and get his garbage. So on garbage day, they have to bypass his particular lot and block room, his allodial property, because he opted out of that service. Now, if you look at the tax breakdown for people who own property and who are paying these taxes, if you look at the tax breakdown, you will realize that a portion of the tax is pertaining to garbage pickup. So now they provide this service to you, and you say, oh yeah, they come get my garbage, that's cool. Other areas, they don't pick up your garbage. You gotta go out back and burn it, or get rid of it the best way you can. So they can't charge you for that. You see what I'm saying? Now they had to eliminate that from the service fee, because he said, no, I'm not paying you. How much was it a month?
Like
$60?
$70.
Yeah, $70 a month. You're really paying. People don't know this. But $70 a month is included in the taxation of the particular property to pick up the garbage. So he said, nah, I don't need that service. Don't come to my house. You understand? You gotta write the contract and you gotta write not the contract. But what I'm saying and what Shikanika is saying is that we don't need these services. Some of them you might need, like the gas company. I know I like gas coming to my home. And I need some electric for now until we, really deal with the solar perspective. I won't deal with it. But for right now, we still need certain services under the certain services you can't get away from right now.
That's right.
Just keeping it real.
That's right. That's right.
With certain services that you can eliminate, start to eliminate. When we start using the term that we're sovereign, you got to understand to a point, if we're saying that we're a sovereign nation or sovereign people, then that means in its true sense of the word, we don't need anybody's assistance. That means we can stand alone. Remember, the individual is not sovereign. The nation is sovereign. And because you're part and parcel to that nation, you hold sovereignty because your nation is sovereign. So if we're saying that we're sovereign as a nation, then that means that we don't need the assistance of an outside private agency to do stuff for us, not unless we hire them to do it. That's a difference. So until we get to that level, we still have to deal with them under threat to arrest and coercion. Because once again, we're repairing our nation. It ain't all together yet.
Yeah, we're repairing.
But we still have rights in the process of repairing our nation. Islam? So just sealing back up on the state's government. Now, did that answer your question on the municipalities? But because we're subject to it, we're still affected by rules that they make. We still should be involved on a municipal level. Because when they have the town meetings, you go there. The Board of Education meetings. Regardless, even though the Board of Education is corrupt, we still need to be active. Just as our counter and our rebuttal to the color. Regardless if they change or not, just to show that, look, there's an active community here that's not standing for this. You do what you do to those people who consent to that, but you got to make some type of separate provisions for us because we're here. So until we get our own, you got to have a certain provision on the way we're going to do business here. And we have to establish that with everybody. To your county government, your state government, your national government. They need to be notified that there's a Moorish American community in there that's sharing the same territory as them, and they have to consider that. That's what they do with other tribes. That's what they do with the so-called Indians. Even though that they might be on reservations that they provided for them, but what they have to do is take in consideration that they have their own rules and regulations. And they have to respect the sovereignty of that individual nation. Same thing with us. Whenever a Moorish community is in a certain area and they are activating their governmental body politic, they need to take in consideration that they're there doing business. And that we're not subject to the statutory laws, rather we're subject to the constitutional laws.
Yes.
And that's what the Sundry Free Moors was saying.
Making that distinction.
If you're going to accuse me of a crime, the only thing we're saying is we want to be tried as a free national, as a Moor, under the Constitution and not under your Negro laws, i.e. your statutory laws.
That's right.
So
how do you feel about car insurance? Do you feel it should be you should treat it or you shouldn't have to use it? Because it's for essentially when you get into an accident or hurt somebody, you think you should be able to take the option to get sued?
No. You gotta protect yourself. Insurance deals with assurance. All right? And it also deals with limited liability.
Yes.
All right? Now, here's what I suggest. Not coming from a statutory perspective, but back to what Shika's Nika is saying. The whole intent of the Moorish movement was to get ourselves self-sustaining to where we should have our own Moorish insurance companies and agencies and our own municipal departments that we can have Moors going around picking up Moors garbage if we need to, have Moors providing certain services. Once we get to that point, then we can eliminate dealing with the other private corporations. So until we get that insurance where we can release ourselves from liability, because be honest with you, if I run into somebody in conveyance, and they conveyance costs $30,000 and somebody get injured, I don't have the fiat or the gold or silver to compensate a person for their injuries. I don't. So I need something to release me from that liability. So I'm gonna use the insurance company for that purpose. I'll pay them a monthly fee to take that liability.
Or do you think it should be insurance, like you said, use their services? Because insurance companies are obviously a corporation, but they make it an offense to not have, like they force you to have.
That's a violation of law. Yeah, it's not. This is why, again, why we must understand the Clearfield Doctrine. Now, this is the other deal that people need to know, even about the insurance companies. Just like by default necessity, people would use them in contract to limit liability, etc. But understand, the problem that we have is that it gives an air of legitimacy that have substance that they're using to cover us when they actually don't. See, this is where the problem is. Meaning that here you will have foreign debtors that are actually using the Moorish estate from which they're occupying and creating bonds against your estate, then disconnect you from your estate by brand names, etc., and nom de guerre. And then they act as imposters, as Americans, and they are not. And then, because it's your estate, they actually use your signature against your own estate upon which the bond is written in the first instance. They're acting as administrator. And then are actually profiting from the color of operations of you even having to deal with them. It's like an imposter who inserts themselves and uses authority that doesn't belong to them and a resource that doesn't belong to them, and then have the people who are beneficiaries of these operations to compensate them energy for a resource and a power and a jurisdiction that not only doesn't belong to them, and then what they're presenting as the offer doesn't exist. And then they use your signature to access your own trust estate that you don't know you have because you don't know what your birthright nationality is. No one's telling you. The prophet told you, that's collectively. And then they got to some governors, etc., and had them sell out. And they've been constantly voiding the national side of this movement, and then not teaching divine law, etc., and then misrepresenting the religious affidavit, and then the people themselves are just simply seat-warming members, just like a reverse church, and have no fundamental knowledge on how to defend the birthright. And then when the ones who do know begin to do it, they think that they're a renegade or somebody that's out to lunch or against the movement, when the masses in the movement don't even know what the movement is about. Not because they're not sincere, because they're lacking information. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. This is how things operate. The corporations under the United States Corporation, i.e. the states of, distinguished from the state republics, are all members of the Roman Curia. Write that down. They're all members of the Roman Curia. Roman Curia, C-U-R-I-A. So that's the first thing that we gotta identify who's who. So doesn't mean that their operations are all wrong in the nature of what the operation is. It is the jurisdiction and the beneficiary issue that's at hand that most of our people aren't aware of. Are we clear? So what you have is imposters
in government. Are we clear? It's not personal to anyone in particular. You have imposters in government. You have the masses of people not being aware of that fact. Certain operations that they're doing are legitimate operations. Are we clear? However, they're designed to divert the benefit to persons to whom the benefit does not belong. Are we clear? Then they're using power and authority that's vested in government alone to impose contracts on people, which is a violation of law, which is what you're making reference to. For the purpose of stealing, in the first instance. Then you have the people who don't know the distinction of what government is or who's who. They just think anybody walks with a suit or a tie, and they say, well, on the law, you know, the masses don't even know jurisprudence, which is the science that treats of law. And law is a subject matter that comes under jurisprudence. They don't even know the rules. And so they're being taken advantage of. That's what is connotatively referred to as slavery. Law and history goes together. People who know and understand government know that. People who don't know government don't know that. Therefore, they'll usually get confused in the conversation when you bring up certain subject matter. They also don't know how to bring cure because their concepts are wrong. So somebody knows these are basic things, can easily and quickly begin to take advantage of them or dismiss them. And of course it creates frustration, but this is really what we're dealing with in North America. All right? We're dealing with a mass of people who don't know the difference between real and fake. Or illusion, you know, de jure, real, de facto, fake. True Americans, Moors. Fake Americans, European fighters, colonial operas, the powers. True white people, any free national. You understand? Fakery. Europeans taking on the title of white and our people thinking it's a complexion in a nation. Superior. And then they rejecting their own white status, which is an abandonment. Little subtle things are the dynamics that we're dealing with, and if we don't correct them, we can't fix the rest of this. Now, people on our side of the nation, and logically people who are under occupational powers, don't want this information out, don't want this stuff clear. Therefore, when you begin to dispense this information, it will tag it like it's terrorist stuff. They're doing terrorist papers, they're confusing, and all that kind of stuff. And people who don't know, you know, yeah, because they said that they are terrorists. And they start, you know, they're not operating on any balance. They don't know law, they never read the Constitution, and they go by emotions. And so if somebody sounds like they're, you know, got it going on, it's law. And so now you got a bunch of incompetent people. But they're constantly complaining about their injuries that they're suffering from, but their suffering comes from their ignorance and not enforcing the Constitution. Here comes no dry leaf to fix this. And then they get so caught up in personality that they don't even recognize his divine mission. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Then others who get so busy worshiping him as a person that they're ignoring the message that he brings. And so you create another schismatic environment where the people are scattered. Because some people can appreciate what he's doing, but they're so busy worshiping him, they're not carrying out the law, which is why he came. And so you have a bunch of Moors that suffering the Negro problems that were supposed to be solved. Do you understand? Now you have the nations of the earth who recognize these problems because it spills over. See, because everything is bound to every other living thing. And so cause and effect, we're talking divine law, not religious law, divine law. Are we clear? This is nature's law, nature's God. These are called primal maxim principles, maxim laws that have nothing to do with what your beliefs are, where you are, how you feel, what your attitude is. They operate. It's like, gravity. No, was that a Muslim graphic or a Christian graphic? No. Once you understand these primal rules, there are primal rules in life that every living being in the physical form is supposed to be taught. These are called civics. Civilization. Are we clear? The science of government. In the carnal form, it requires movement of energy. The politics is the order by which resources and energies are housed, collected, dispensed, regulated. Are we clear? Not really, but politics is essentially the art and the science of gathering, and because you're dealing with energies all the time, housing, collecting, packaging, regulating, movement, distribution of energies, i.e. resources. Right? It's not opinion, that's fact. Universal. When you're dealing with people that don't know these rules, they have a tendency to bridge them rules. And they also have a tendency to have false expectations. They also have a tendency not to recognize balance and the need for balance. Are we clear? Constitutions of life are based in divine law and the study of divine laws, and that is to keep a balance. This is so like as an example, women can best understand this. We can all really best understand because we all got mothers. But the deal is, all right, just like baby just came in, right? Baby to us, but right. Farasha just came in and brought some fruits over to her mother, right? Now, many of you have been around for quite a while. Remember, she's a little teen girl. She's growing up a little bit more, right? Now, the same principle as she's bringing to her mother would bring to her from her breast or from her hand until she's able to support herself. In nation states on the planet, the rule of nations operate exactly the same of matriarchy. Nationalization is when the imbalance is manifest. Do you understand? And then we say like this, right? All right, we're doing some other stuff. So we leave our children with you, right? And at any time it may be crossed like that. So when you talk about international, you're saying intermotherly. When one mother gets sick, or when there's too much milk leaving her and you create an imbalance, and the same thing with the mind, you nationalize. What does nationalization mean in government? It means we take your baby off her breast. Right now, you gotta go to your own mom because we gotta get things in balance. Because you're overtaxing the mother. So that the mother doesn't die, in order to save the mother, the nation, nativity, you gotta relieve pressure and bring that energy back up. Are we clear? So, the gold, the silver, and the currents belong to the citizens, and the citizens is based on divine law. Are we clear? Yes. Now, why did the Romans, Europeans come to North America? To steal our gold and silver and resources. To what? Create a disimbalance. To create an imbalance. Disorder. Dis-ease. Right? Do you understand? We've been suffering from it. And so the prophet came to bring balance. Assigned as an avatar from divine order. It operates that way naturally once you understand civilization. And mothers will bring champions by divine law to bring balance. It's how things work. Once you understand this, nothing's a mystery. If you don't understand it, you get caught up in personalities. So he's got a beard, his beard should be 3 inches long, but it's 2, so he can't be the prophet. You know, that kind of stuff. People, you understand what I'm saying to you? People get all like, because they really don't, and they don't really understand how things work. So people have to understand how things work. So they must be taught the truth of divine law. Nature is law, nature is God. It has nothing to do with what we believe. It has to do with maxims of truths that are preserved and passed down from generation to generation to maintain balance. That's what constitutions are for. Keep in mind, let's cut through the chase because of time factor. Over years, centuries, you had wars between the Muslims and the Christians. This is cutting through the chase. So you can come from the Punic Wars, that means Phoenicians. The Punic Wars on up to the Battle of Tours, Christian Crusades, Battle of Tours near Poitiers, France, etc. All these are battles between the Moors and the Christians. Christian is not a religion in the concept that people have it. It is a hegemony system for the Roman hybrids. Are we clear? Now the Moors had ceded in the area to the hybrida or the hybrids for their own, because they are not what you call indigenous to the planet. Are we clear? So therefore they are not indigene or they're not aboriginal. Are we clear? And because they have no estate, they've been vandals going around stealing from everybody. So this has been the basis of most of what you see today. Forget nation states. We're giving you an overview of what's happening on the planet. All right? Most of your so-called nation states are no more than 100, 150 years old. They didn't exist beyond that, most of them. So what you have is a dissolution of the Moabite nation, which is a matriarchy, coming down to the Moorish nation, which is a matriarchy, patriarchy. Same nation. And the dissolution, which becomes your different nation states around the world. We're talking about the real world, the real politics of what's going on. All right, now what you have is, in your modern contemporary foundation of politics, is where the Moors ceded the land of Angles, which you call England area, from the Georges to the hybrids who were taken from the area that you call Argentina and transported to the Isle of Patmos as a stop pass near what you call today Turkey, from there to the land of Angles, which is now called England. Do you understand? Now, we'll get to those. Ceded. The land that you call England was ceded to the Europeans by the Moors. Right. Which means we gave them an area to be. There's two reasons, and we won't get into that because I want to stay mostly with the politics. Is because being hybrida or hybrids, anywhere where you get close to the celestial equator, the sun will seek to kill them because of the hybrid, because they have the skin is the largest organ on the body, and the sun, because their nervous system is so close to the surface of the skin, because they have limited melanin, the sun will by its very nature kill them. That's right. So the move of the Moors taking the Europeans to the land of Angle was an act of love and consideration, not just of some hostile thing. Now, in the land of Angles, in that area, the way it sits on the globe, there's a generality of around 33 degrees most of the time. And it's misty and foggy and more compatible with their organs, their skin. This is why the land of Angles was chose. This is also why they're sometimes called Anglican. Anglican. Do you understand? This is where you get the word English, which is really not even their own, it's still your language, we gave it to them. So even when you're talking language, don't get things twisted with people who get caught on these social engineering things, ours and theirs and we and them. It's not exactly like that. Do you understand? Because there's really only one culture on the planet. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So like even when Drawley says, get yourself a good European education so I can use you. And a lot of people get upset. They don't understand that the European education is a Moorish education. Because they don't know about the Renaissance. That the only reason why the Europeans ruled it is because we brought them into the marvelous light. Giving it. Oh, they were white and they were slaves. Yes, the untold story of the enslavement of whites in early Americas. Now, one of the things they were doing, and this is where it has to be clear, they're basing that statement on the assumption that the Europeans are white people. But you must understand it's a legal title that was taken on by them from 54 to 63. This is with the Horace Greeley issue and even the Mummers Parade in Philly. So that's show you how easily we can, yes. There's so much that Moors need to understand so that we don't fall into prejudices that we see others practice. Because once you have knowledge, you don't need all of those prejudices. What you need to do is fix things. It's going to go into that.
It's not. No, I'm not interjecting. I want to raise a question. Well, actually, can you show the connection, being that you're talking about Canaanland and that whole English connection with the Moors? Can you also speak on the Magna Carta?
Yes.
And its relation to them and us?
Yes.
Also, take that and go into the UCCs, because we got a question on the phone.
Yes.
About the beginning of UCCs and the usages of UCCs.
Yes. And to show you how to use it, because there's so much what you call primal things that we're trying to drop, so that everybody be on time or kind of understand where we're coming from. Now, the Magna Carta is actually given to them. That's sort of like liberation for them from the Moorish nobles. So a lot of times when people look at England and look at the lords and the Danes and the Dubs and the Moors, they're thinking what they see in the movies when they see European guys and armor and stuff riding on their horses, all cool and stuff. That wasn't them. That was you. Do you understand? So when they're making a lot of those movies and they show you a lot of these noble kings and stuff as Europeans, that's not true.
Even the titles they use.
They're not. It's not true. Now that's a whole other thing we can get into, but I want to stay on focus with
this. Not just to speak on the topic of how they reinvent our story. Like there was the Lone Ranger story was actually a story about a guy by the name of Bass Reeves.
Yes.
Who actually was he was a slave, and he beat up the slave master. Then he went to the western countries like Oklahoma, and he became known as one of the baddest Westerners there. He locked up over 2,000 criminals and so on and so forth. And the story Lone Ranger came from that.
And let's look at this too. And this is and the story how we got to really work is we got to change our language, right? Number one, we were not slaves, we were bound free men. So we got to recognize when Moors are using the word slavery, we're using it connotatively, and we must always qualify. Slavery versus Slovakians, when the Red Ruffles went into the Slovakian nations and subdued them. And it's a connotatively used word. Contemporary in its nature cannot be taken retroactive in history because it creates false concepts, which creates a lie. So we're not slaves, we're bound free men. And so recognize when it's said connotatively, knowing that it has to be corrected later. Do you understand? You got to get people where they are and then correct it. That's why Islam is given in degrees. Because if you go with a slave argument, then you're incompetent. When you're going to make an argument before world court, or legitimate court, and you're talking about you're a slave, you just lied. Because you're not Slovakian. You're bound free men. Moors, bound free men, and the word slave is used connotatively. All right, that's where the connotative linguistics was introduced by the dark priesthood in order to suppress legal argument when it would be eventually made, knowing that light would eventually come to the people, and then they would have to make a legal argument. And once they start making a legal argument, and they got a knowledge of themselves and their language didn't change, they can be declared incompetent. then they can put a deputy knight on them from England who's deputy knights for the popes of Rome under the secret treaty of Verona, and then take over your claim because you have no right of claim, because if you're not competent in law, you're not heritable. Write that down, because you need to put this all in context of what we're talking about right now, because we can't go over all these things. Escheat, E-S-C-H-E, right? A-T. Just like cheat, escheat, all right? Wardship, minor and minority. So keep in mind, the Magna Carta was given to the Europeans, grant them liberties, etc. And those principles come from Moorish law. And so that's why a lot of the nature of that same principles apply in the American Constitution. And Obama tried to expose some of this, because he's a constitutional lawyer. And so when he went to Egypta, that's strategic. Egypta is the proper name of what you call Egypt. All high priests know that. All true scholars know that that's not Egypt. That's a modern term. Egypta. H-I-K-U-P-T-A-H. See Ptah at the end of it? That's where you get Ptah. This is also where the Christians get Peter coded that they put in the Bible. And the power of Peter and the power of the Pope comes from Ptah. And they taking your seat. So the Pope represents the Sultan of the planet. Pharaohs of Egypta. That's why that power is absolute. Do you understand? You got to understand they're stealing your birthright. You need to understand the politics of the world. Don't reject everything. Study things. Understand how things operate. Do you understand? Understand if you're dealing with electricity, you're dealing with what? Anode, cathode. Anode, cathode, cathode. You got opposite pole. You're dealing with pole energy. Energy is itself what you're dealing with. Even when you're talking about the metaphysical principles or the divine law, you're really talking about the nomad Atman spark of life that manifests in the physical body, which is really the higher self and the lower self. So that you understand that energy is what the vampires are after. Do you understand? So that's a whole nother thing. Now, let's get beyond that. There's a treaty that was made, agreed.
1 second.
Wait.
Islam, for our online viewers, give us 2 minutes to log out and log back on so we can refresh it, so we can have more time for you. You can keep going?
All right, yeah.
But I have to log off.
Go do it. Yeah, do what you do. Now,
don't go nowhere.
With the secret treaty of Verona, that's the agreement of them doing the overthrow, right? To overthrow the Republican forms of government. See, for Rome to rule, they cannot maintain a Republican form of government because of its colonial character and connection to the Moors. If you look at some early, and not too early, we're talking about even as late as the 60s, school books where they're talking about American history, they will say, in order for them to institute the black codes, which were used to bureaucratize slavery in North America, one of the first things they had to do was to dismantle the Republican forms of government in all the southern states because of its relationship to the Negro code Moors. And you know Negroes are brand to remove them from the estate. So all of these things you have to take into account. This is why you must know connotative linguistics so that you can know how to look at a piece of literature and take the codes out. So we're giving you the corrected denotative linguistics. So a lot of times we'll focus on denotation, which is related to the etymon. Etymon, write this down, E-T-Y-M-O-N. So when we're making certain corrections with you, or we make emphasis on certain words, understand that we're making reference to the, which is an etymon degree that's given to all scholars, 3rd grade. So we're not going to get into that right now, But you must understand, when we're correcting you, it's not because we're disagreeing with what we know that you're trying to say. We know that if you don't know these things, that you're declared incompetent. Our job is to bring you to a level of competence, and then we still all grow. Because if we don't bring you to a level of competence, you get in a form of law talking about estate and your stuff. You stop blowing your wind because they're going to put a barrister on you. You either, it's like, it's true. I want to go to common law real quick. I'll give you Black's Law. Common Law, 4th edition. I want you to read the common law, please. Queen Nika, can you?
It's somewhere.
The 4th is not here?
Yeah, it's in here. It's right there. It's on top of that blue dictionary right there.
Reach that for her, brother. Reach that. I'm sorry for reaching up to please.
Yes, it is.
This is up there.
Right there. The one no back on it.
Oh.
The one no back on it. Right there. Boom.
That's the 4th?
It should be.
That is the 4th edition. Whoa, that is a dictionary.
No. That's it. Unabridged.
It's like this.
I can tell from him. Anyway, keep it moving.
Yeah.
The treaty, the secret treaty of Verona, is the agreement of Romans, Europeans. Remember when we were saying Romans? It's not insulted. That means red man. All right. That's the hybrid. It's not an insult. All right. So we're talking about collectively the European nations. And understand, Europe is not even their name. It's given to them in honor because they were put under the care of Queen Europe, who herself is a Moabitess. Are we clear? This is why the Pope will always have a facsimile of the King of Freising on his coat of arms. King of Freising is more. You understand? We're talking about Freising. Let's say this, and we can get so easily distracted. Freising is the original name of the area that you call Germany now. That Moor that you see on the coat of arms of the Pope of Rome is the King of Freising. Superseding. Be clear. All right. Got that? Can you read the common law, please, good brother?
I'm almost there. Just when it comes to this.
Now, I want you to read here. Now, I want you all to pay attention, read between the lines.
Common law.
Read between the lines.
Okay, Black Law, 4th edition, common law, as distinguished from the Roman law, the modern civil law, and the Canaan law, and other systems of common law is the body of law and jurisdictic theory, which was originated, developed, and formulated, and is administered in England, and has obtained amongst most of the states and peoples Anglo-Saxon.
Now, great. Yes. Yeah.
Continue.
Now, it pertains to what? Go ahead.
As distinguished from law created by the enactment of legislature, the common law comprises the body of those principles and rules of action relating to the government and security of persons and property, which derive their authority solely from usages and customs of immemorial antiquity.
Stop right there. Now, this is based on the rule of honor your mothers and fathers, that your days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God has given thee. In civil law, it converts this, that you must be able to associate with, to regurgitate, to demonstrate the traditions and customs of your ancient mothers and fathers in order for the common law to take precedence over the Roman law, the civil law, the canon law, and other forms of law, etc., protecting persons and property, etc. Now, this is the concept, and this is why I wanted you to read this to get this understanding, because a lot of times people start invoking the common law thinking it just applies because the information is powerful, or that they can preserve their estate, where you go into uniform commercial codes thinking they can make a claim on the estate and therefore be creditor, etc., when they're not heirs to the estate and they can't demonstrate a connection to their ancient mothers and fathers immemorial, so they must name the bloodline or nationality that even have the claim to use the common law. A lot of people don't do that. And when people are promoting UCC and selling packages, they are very careful not to tell people that because they can't get the sale. But when people start using this stuff, this is where, when they start hitting them walls, and then the European administrators of the trust in the state says, you can't use the Constitution or the common law to as a defense. You're not a party to it. But they're meaning that you cannot use any covenant of law to secure your estate or your claim on the estate because you're not a party to it.
Or from the judgments and decrees of what you just said,
yes,
of the courts recognizing, affirming, and enforcing such usages and customs, and in the sense, particularly the ancient,
yes,
unwritten law of England.
So now, and then you must know about the Moors, the Danes, and the Dubs, and you must know the Renaissance. Because on the surface, the average person will assume they're talking about the Europeans, hybrids, and not the European nobles. Are we clear? Now, this is why you must know your history so that you don't get disconnected, because most of us suffer from that disassociation.
That's right.
This is also why a lot of times Europeans, when they get frustrated of us marching and praying and doing all kinds of Negro stuff, tell you get frustrated, why don't you all leave us, don't give us a break? Why don't you go back to your Negro leaders that keep selling you all back into slavery?
Right.
Really, that's what they're talking about. They're really talking about, we're doing more to preserve your law than you are. Matter of fact, we got all kind of rituals wearing your fez, and you won't even wear your fez, and you're going to talk about you own property. You're out to lunch. You're incompetent. They racist. Racist to human species. You know, we're so corrupted, we're so misguided by our so-called leadership. This is what Drew Ali said when he says examine the conditions and recognize that the life that we're living, we're violating our own law, but we don't know it because we keep associating our law with Europeans. Do you understand? But anyway,
I just want to add on.
Go ahead, add to that, please. Oh, this is great, bro.
Regular Islam. We got
no,
one.
we don't want all that.
We got one reference, Black's Law Dictionary, right, as just a rule of study. Also, encyclopedias. I got very old encyclopedias out here for research. But also, you look the same word up in different sources. And the older sources you can get, the better, we already know. But as we speaking about common law, this is very important because when we dealing with common law, we got to understand where does the common law come from. And like Bey and Taj just mentioned, you got to deal with bloodline when you're dealing with common law, because that's what is acknowledged as custom law or common law. What you also have termed is customary law, i.e. tradition, which means something that predates the modern day era of time and usage. So in our history with our forefathers, we was known for what we call Muslim customary law. That's important because we are Muslims. And this is one of the reasons why it's used as a declaration, even within the language of our documents, is to call upon that bloodline.
Yes.
And we get confused because we start dealing with the practices of it and the hadith on what people say about it, and not really calling on the enforcement of the customary law. Is really why it's worded that way. When you look at our charter and even looking at our authority and things that the prophet used what he was doing, he went back to Muslim customary law.
Yes, he did.
And this is why even in our authority, he might have filed some things with the county and Cook, is what we keep looking at. But he told you where we really derive our authority from. You gotta understand, so when he's talking about the great Quran of Muhammad, that's going back to Muslim customary law as well. And that's not just dealing with the Quran of Mecca. The Quran of Muhammad is different from the Quran of Mecca.
That's right.
You're getting into different dimensions here. Yes, sir.
That's why they suspect the nationality. What's his nationality? Why? Because you sit on America. If you study Muhammad from 576 it shows you that his bloodline were Moors. They make the transition from Asia to kingdoms.
Yes, and all of the prophets.
Yes. One interjection, hold on just one word. Interject what he just whispered something to me. Good, about Jefferson. And this is what you must know about the so-called founding fathers being deists. It's another subject matter we need to go into. But make the statement again.
This is why Thomas Jefferson, when he was inaugurated, he took his oath on the Quran.
There you go. But you must know that they were dealing science. They weren't dealing pre-spookism. Clear.
Let me continue with this. The word custom in the encyclopedia, they have a whole page on the word custom, but you only scan through it and get what applies to the subject matter. Even with a dictionary, they give you several different definitions, but you have to scroll down to the one that best suits how it's being used or how you need it to be used. Here, at common law, the principal requirements for a valid custom are that it has been enjoyed as a right, peacefully, continuously, and uninterruptedly from immemorial. That it is reasonable, certain, and obligatory. That goes back to what I was saying about how they get you into the commercial law. Commercial law is based on what's obligatory. Contract, agreements, covenant. Meaning that with a commercial agreement or with a corporation that you're dealing with, not government, it's all based on if you're obligated or not. If your obligation is based on if you signed an agreement to be obligated. If you haven't, then there's no law or no obligation to you at that point. So your simple question to them is, do we have a contract? If you don't have a contract with them, there's nothing enforceable here.
Nothing to discuss.
So that's one thing. Let me keep reading. Not such that persons may choose whether or not to be bound by it, that it is confined to some defined locality. In some respects, these requirements seem more stringent than they are. Thus, enjoyment from time immemorial will be presumed from evidence of continuous enjoyment as far back as living testimony can go.
Now, interjection. Go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers. No drolly. See the relationship?
Yes. As far back as you can go, as evidence is presented. Now you see why the prophet takes us back to timelines of our forefathers? Because he's setting the precedent of what was established before. So he's showing the connection of us modern day, being Moorish Americans, like you said earlier, that yes, we're named or referred to as Moorish Americans now, but we are descendants of the ancient ones, the ancient Moabites. He said, who are the Moorish? They're descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and the southwestern shores of Africa. You understand? So now you have to go back into their customary laws in order to confine them or construe their particular laws pertaining to that state. That's how you eliminate the statutory laws and you go back to the Muslim customary laws, because those are the laws of your forefathers.
Or you can't knock the chess pieces off. See what they've done? They put on contemporary pieces on the chessboard and been beating people up with it.
Islam, what?
Fraud, are we clear? And misrepresentations. For you to counter that, you must know what the pieces are supposed to have originally done. And if you don't or can't demonstrate it, that tells them you have no connection to your ancient mothers and fathers. This is breaking the connection of the illustrious works of, that's why they don't teach Renaissance. That's also why they don't teach Moorish science. They'll talk about religion. You know, Urali set up what? What's his charter say? Divine and national movement. Does that say religious and national movement?
No, divine and national.
It says divine and national movement. You ask half the people to go over the 7 principles of the phenomena that comprises divine law, and most of them can't even tell you.
So,
Unfortunately. Go ahead.
I would have a question.
Go ahead, Grand Sheikh.
Peace, Morris.
Greetings to yourself and the family.
Islam.
Peace.
2 questions. One, with regard to Moors that use the UCC process to detach from the straw. If you could speak on that. On what the positive and negatives.
Yes, real quick. Yeah, let me go on that.
All right.
Now keep in mind the operations of the trying to capture that is based in House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress. And I'm going to read a little bit for everyone to understand, because we need to know why certain things are done. So let's go into that first, all right? And then I'm going to go into the Secret Treaty of Verona, congressional records. Let me do that first to let them know what they're battling. This is for everybody. I'm not going to go into every one. I'm going to go into the United States congressional records. And keep in mind, Canaanland, or Canada, the corporation, is registered down here in the corporate state of Delaware, all coming under the crown. Both of them are simply British colonies. Are we clear? And they're all operating under the Secret Treaty of Verona, the sources of their political guidebook to do things to us and to undermine the Republic, which is strategically principled in all of their operations to counter our right of claim of a state. This is 1916 when it was entered into the record, although this is earlier from 1822. Senator Owen, this is the House of Representatives, and for those researchers, look for the 61st Congress, congressional records at the Senate. Secret Treaty of Verona, extract from 1916. Senator Owen, I wish to put into the record the Secret Treaty of Verona of November 22nd, 1822, showing what this ancient conflict is between the rule of the few and the rule of the many. And I wish to call the attention of the Senate to this treaty because it is the threat of this treaty which was the basis of the Monroe Doctrine. It throws a powerful white light upon the conflict between monarchical government and government by the people. The Holy Alliance, under the influence of Metternich, the Premier of Austria, in 1822, issued this remarkable secret document, Secret Treaty of Verona. I'm going to go into just the first 3 articles, although there are 7 because of time constraint, because we're setting the foundation to give people an understanding of why the Uniform Commercial Codes are being used today. The undersigned specially authorized to make some additions to the Treaty of the Holy Alliance. So when you talk about the Treaty of the Holy Alliance, understand that you're talking about the Secret Treaty of Verona and the continuation of what is called the conquest of civilization via the Christian Crusades. Continuing. Excuse me. After having exchanged their respective credentials, have agreed as follows. Article 1. The high contracting parties being convinced that the system of representative government is equally as incompatible with the monarchical principles as the maxim of sovereignty of the people with the divine right, engage mutually in the most solemn manner to use all that their efforts to put an end to the system of representative governments in whatever country it may exist in Europe and to prevent it being introduced in those countries where it is not yet known. Article 2. It cannot be doubted that the liberty of the press is the most powerful means used by the pretended supporters of the rights of nations to the detriment of those princes. The high contracting parties promise reciprocally to adopt all proper measures to suppress it, not only in their own states, but also in the rest of Europe. Article 3. Convinced that the principles of religion contribute most powerfully to keep nations in the state of passive obedience, which they owe to their princes. The high contracting parties declared to be their intention to sustain in their respective states those measures which the clergy may adopt with the aim of ameliorating their own interest, intimately connected with the preservation of the authority of the princes and the contracting powers in offering their thanks to the Pope for what he has already done for them and solicit his constant cooperation in their views of submitting the nations. I'm going to make some subsequent comment on each one of them to bring you contemporary to understand how these operate. So whenever religion is being presented to you in the modern era, is used as an opiate. It is used as a solace system, as an opiate, and for putting the people in a docile mental state, for controls from a governmental operation of the deputy knights of the popes of Rome. Are we clear? So most people, as soon as you start talking religion, they get all starry-eyed and think you're talking about Jesus, God, Muhammad, etc. And you're talking political controls, and you're talking about the people being submitted to the popes of Rome, not to Jesus. Article 3 is where your 501c3 later comes in with Skull and Bones member Lyndon Baines Johnson when he got rid of Kennedy for trying to bring the gold back in a countermeasure to the operations that took place in 1871, etc., and 1930 coming out parts, and the activities that took place with Skull and Bones member Woodrow Wilson as a countermeasure to No Draw League, which undermined the Republic, which is established in Article 1 of the Secret Treaty of Verona and registered in the Library of Congress, in the Congressional Records. And this dismisses any claim by any so-called politician or so-called black leader scholar guys to pretend they don't know this information and to pretend that they don't know what Drew Ali is really doing or avoiding this kind of conversation. You already know that they're COINTELPRO operators, undoubtedly. Now I'm going to go to the Congressional Records. Same Congressional Records, we just registered in the Congressional Records so people can't talk about, I don't know that, it's according to my belief. Ain't got a daggone thing to do with beliefs. This is documented stuff. And so then we're going to give an overview of commercial codes and go from there. Give me a minute because I'm scrolling through the lesson book.
Yes, brother. The road is that the V. Son, why you keep talking scrolling for that? When we're looking at, you said trying to detach from the straw man, right?
Right, using the
UCCs to try to detach from the straw man.
Right.
Now we got to remember that the straw man is a corporation. The corporation is a DBA or a agent corporation of the mother corporation of the U.S. It's an agency of the agents of U.S. corporation. All right, so Negro, black, and colored, just like the Hispanic, Puerto Rican, even white, black, they're all agencies of the corporate warship. So now, with that being said, you're trying to detach from that. You can't detach from a corporation using the UCC. And this is what a lot of Moors are misunderstanding, that the corporation, remember, is considered an artificial entity. is already property of the slaveholder. The only one that can free the entity from the slaveholder is the individual himself in his natural capacity. He cannot do it in an artificial or corporate capacity, because a slave, even though we're not slaves, but if we're holding the title of slave or property, which is wardship, doesn't have any rights. Therefore, in the straw man capacity, he doesn't even have a voice. So therefore, he can't disclaim or disassociate himself because he's property. He needs permission from the slaveholder to do so. So when you go into the UCC game, you're already talking about the Negro or the warship is under contract already. He can't dissolve himself. Only the creditor can dissolve the debtor. The debtor can't dissolve the creditor. So you can't play the UCC game to try to disassociate from the straw man. We're natural persons that were enslaved.
Bound freemen.
But we're bound free men, so therefore we gotta declare our freedom. That's the only way we can dissociate from the straw man. We do that through our Muslim or our Moorish customary laws. That's why on the documents it says through the traditions and the usage of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Because what that does, it ties us back into our ancient Moorish customary law. We can't use corporate law to proclaim our nationality because the nationality is under natural law. It's protected by constitutional rights and immunities. Commercial law is not. UCC is commercial law. UCC represents uniform commercial codes. A code is not a law. A statute is not a law. A code can only exist off something that's natural or real pre-existing it.
Right.
So a code in itself becomes artificial in nature. Only if it's construed in harmony with natural law can it be used by us. But if the particular code is against the order of the Constitution or natural law, is what we call notwithstanding. It's void of law.
Void of space.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
So with regard to code not being law, could you apply Purge revised statute to that statement?
Yeah, this is what happens. Anytime we use a code or a statute, we're only using it to present to them their obligation to support that which already exists, upon which the code or the statute is bent or serves to make reference to. They're more acknowledgments, but the power is always the supreme law or the supreme covenant. As an example, let's look at this, and this is for anyone that's approaching uniform commercial codes. Remember, what we're not saying to people, don't use them. We're not saying to people, no, no, no. We're saying to people to look at what you're doing, pay attention to what you're doing, understand what it is. Understand that commercial means commerce. Commerce means trade. Unalienable rights cannot be converted, transferred, sold, or traded to another. When you're talking about preserving rights, etc., you're not talking about privileges. When you're talking commerce, you're talking strictly trade. Now, in order to be able to talk strictly trade, you must have power of attorney of self. Therefore, in law, it's called impropria persona sui juris, whereas one is in one's own proper person, and one can prove oneself to be descendable of persons who have right of claim to land, which is the source of resource to be a creditor to anything. Now, the relationship that goes on in North America is one of colonial operations by Europeans who are occupying Morocco, which is the land, under the jurisdiction of a colonial operative colony styled as United States Corporation Company, distinguished from the land. This is why you have to do the two seals, or what you call the dual seal. You have the one seal, what you have is two nation states essentially that are intricately involved or converged. This is called the union, ETC. This is also why you say, when they say you have the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union, and dealing with the issue of our progeny, which means your offspring, you're preserving a right for them. Let's go, or right and property. Let's go to Article 6 of the Constitution, and keep in mind, because of time constraint, when we finish, go to Act 6 in the Divine Constitutional Bylaws after I say this. Article 6 of the American Constitution, all debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be binding against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. And all treaties made, or which shall be made in pursuance thereof, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Any laws or constitution of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So now we're talking about the supreme law of the land, we're talking about a universal venue. Are we clear? That includes diversity that's expressed in Article 3, Section 2. So now you have people from different nation states, and you have a political forum by which all grievances, all issues of law are already established. It's called stare decisis and res judicata. Therefore, when the Europeans, through their subversive means, which we just read in the secret treaty of Verona, to overthrow the Republic secretly, this is where you have the coup that took place in 1871. Knowing that they also adjourned sine die 1861 without day, and therefore were dissolved even then. Under the problem we have is that the Asiatics were still not cognizant of their estate rights, or they weren't organized in such a manner by which they had a political forum to make right of claim. Therefore, the corporate states, i.e., were what you call escheating their estates by virtue of these people being declared not descendable. One, they were transacting business in another man's name, which makes them agency. Two, not being in their proper person, they can't claim a state because in law of the state, it makes them not descendable. Now, four, they are not operating on constitutional principles, which is the covenant by which their estate was protected. Five, they start calling themselves crayons. All of which makes them and then Europeans start calling themselves Americans and stealing the birthright. And the Moors didn't contest that. As a matter of fact, the Moors start calling them Americans. Then the Europeans under Horace Greeley took on the title of white that belongs to the Moors. Then the Moors start saying they're white people, which assigns them the sovereign right. So here you have incompetent heirs that don't know they're heirs, that think human beings are crayons, my light-skinned, orange-skinned girlfriend, all that kind of stuff, and how you like my light-skinned black leather coat. I'm telling you, you got these people that's totally out to lunch. You got all kinds of gods, though, always broke, don't know nothing about divine law, serious, and they talking about owning property. You got that absolutely right. And the Grand Chief just read the common law. They can't even trace back to the customs and traditions. They don't know the distinction between beliefs and religion. They don't know what divine law is. They're totally disconnected, and they're arrogant with it. Anyway, let's go on. So let's go to congressional records again. And this is again where none of these so-called scholars can talk about they don't know what this is about, or that they don't know what Drew Ali was doing, because they know exactly what he was doing. Now, this is James Trafficant addressing the House, and you already know they bumped him off a couple months ago. You know that, right?
Islam, yeah.
Faked his demise. A detractor hit a pole on his farm and turned over upside. Right. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, this is addressing the House. We are here now in Chapter 11, and remember we're qualifying why people are using uniform commercial codes. We are now here in Chapter 11, and members of Congress are official trustees. So if they're trustees, they're talking about an estate, aren't they? They're talking about a trust, aren't they? And if they're trustees, they daggone sure ain't the owners of the estate. So they daggone sure can't be the creditors. Anyway, presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity, not country, entity, in world history, the U.S. government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. Oh, they trying to figure out how they can do all this stuff together, because it's done. There are some who say it's a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act of March 9, 1933, 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt as being bankrupt and insolvent. House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress in session, June the 5th of 1933. When they get rid of Drawley, 29. Oh, they coming out now. All right. Joint Resolution to suspend the gold standard. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. They're telling you what? They are openly enforcing Article 1 of the Secret Treaty of Verona. All right. Let me see. Our joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. They're defunct, don't exist. All departments, all the officers done. Kaput. Popcorn is out the basket. Get the point? All right, now, the receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers.
That's right.
Via the United Nations, the World Bank, and International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF. All United States officers, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status. In name only, under emergency war powers with the constitutional Republican form of government, for the United States dissolved, right? And so the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This form of government is known as a democracy. So in 1933, they came out the closet, admitted to overthrow, and this is where the democracy order came in, although it was set up in 1871. Now, keep in mind, Noble Drawley is a countermeasure, born in state of North Carolina, actually North Carolina State, 1886, duly and divinely appointed to reverse these operations from the popes of Rome, continuing the Inquisition operations against the Moors. So when you go into history and you look at Pope Urban III, Pope Pius III, Innocent III, the Inquisition operations, you know, it's against the Moors and Yahudi, who they now call Moors and Jews, who now they call them black people, Negro, black and colored, whatever brands they're using this week. We're talking documented history. Now, those who run government must belong to secret societies because they must preserve the truth for their selfish selves. It's why they bring them marching Negro, keep hope alive Negro guys in, give them 33 degrees and a kufi and a pheasant secret, and give them some 501c3 kickback from Skull and Bones, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and pretend they don't know about who the Moors are while they got a Moorish fez dressed in jewels with the tassel pinned down. Let's continue.
Indeed.
So this act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of the Treasury to that of the Governor of the International Monetary Fund. Keep in mind these public laws is what they're really using when they're trying to discharge. Keep in mind. Public Law 94-5, 64, page 8, section HR 13955 reads in part, the United States Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. Why does he not receive any compensation? Because the office don't exist. That's why. Anyway, gold and silver were such a powerful money, etc., during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers, the deists, declared that only gold or silver coin can be money, in America. And since gold and silver coins were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks, and a claim check was issued as a money substitute. And so people traded their coupons as money or currency. Dealing with electricity, principal electricity, because we're still dealing with energies. All right, currency is not money, but a money substitute. Redeemable currency must promise to pay $1 equivalent in gold or silver money. Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, make no such promises and are not money. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government and not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind. But only lawful money, gold and silver coin, and logically, you know, those who enforce the Constitution, that's Article 10, Section 1. Article 1, Section 10, Article 1, Section 10, etc. And being Morse Americans, being part and parcel of this said government, our job is to enforce that Constitution. Now, it is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money. Translation, counterfeit and money. Substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper in debt. And we the people no longer have any money. Most Americans have never been paid any money for a long time, perhaps not in their entire lives. Now, can you comprehend why you feel broke now? Then you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country. Now I'm going to skip up and I'm going to go into the basis upon which the UCCs are. Hold on. Let me see here. Hold on. Because we're making mention of the birth certificates, because we know it's a bottomry instrument. All right.
Grand Sheik.
This is all, Mark.
Also, keep in mind, you asked about Hurd's revised statutes. The statutes of Illinois at that time were the only statutes, or one of the very limited statutes that was still construed in harmony with the common law. And that's why one of the reasons why the prophet went to Illinois and set up the nation.
Right.
Let's continue so I don't break the pattern, so that you all can try to catch where they're operating from. Where they're operating from and where the people are operating from trying to get remedy. It's within House Joint Resolution 192. Now, so the Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. So they're unsigned checks written on a closed account. Now, keep in mind, the first original certificates themselves were the checks. Now people don't know the difference between the checks and Federal Reserve notes and greenbacks and original 6 certificates to make their claim on the finance, which is the original checks. So the original greenback certificates are the checks. They don't even know that. Oh, we're out to lunch. Anyway, so the Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. Federal Reserve notes are an inflatable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, which is devaluation of the currency, which is what's taking place right now.
Exactly.
Now, whenever there is an increase in the supply of money substitute in the economy without a corresponding increase in the gold and silver backing, inflation occurs. Inflation is an invisible form of taxation that irresponsible governments inflict on their citizens. The Federal Reserve Bank, who controls the supply and movement of Federal Reserve notes, has everybody fooled. They have access to an unlimited supply of FRNs, paying only for the printing costs of what they need. And Federal Reserve notes are nothing more than a promissory notes, for U.S. Treasury securities, which are called T-bills. Pay attention to that, because we're going to go into that into the Clearfield Doctrine. A promise to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank. There is a fundamental difference between, quote-unquote, paying a debt and, quote-unquote, discharging a debt. To pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance, i.e. gold or silver, barter, or commodity. The Federal Reserve notes, yes, all right. With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt. Keep this in mind. With the Federal Reserve notes, you're discharging. So most people are looking at just doing the signature thing or claiming to be the creditor and discharging. The Federal Reserve notes themselves are only a discharge. And you cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. You cannot service a debt with a currency that has no backing in value or substance. No contract in common law is valid unless it involves an exchange of good and valuable consideration. Unpayable debt transfers power and control to the sovereign power structure that has no interest in money, law, equity, or justice because they have so much ill-gotten wealth already. Their lust is for power and control, and since the inception of central banking, they have controlled the fate of nations. Now, the Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law. Keep in mind when the Grand Sheik read about the common law, that in order for you to trump the Roman law, the civil law, the canon law, and other types of law, you can only trump them with the common law. And then you must be able to trace back to what? Your forefathers, the traditions and customs of immemorial antiquity, which means you must know the bloodline and you must know who you are. And that's what protects persons and properties. That's the states that everybody keep on trying to secure with the UCCs. Anyway.
Laws, be yourselves.
Yeah, be yourself. Anyway, so the Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law and the principles of sovereignty protected in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In fact, the international bankers used a canon law trust as their model, adding stock and naming it a joint stock trust. And the U.S. Congress has passed a law making it illegal for any legal person to duplicate a joint stock trust, which they're trying to do with the UCCs. Right. Now, this was done in 1873. Now, so they got no history too. Now, the Federal Reserve Act was legislated post facto to 1870, although post facto laws are strictly forbidden by the American Constitution, set at Article 1, Section 10, Clause Section 9, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3. Now, the Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure, separate and distinct from the federal United States government. The Federal Reserve is a maritime lender, so we know that they're using admiralty law, and or maritime insurance underwriter to the federal United States, operating exclusively under admiralty maritime law. And the lender or underwriter bears the risk, and the maritime law compelling specific performance and paying the interest or premiums are the same. Now, assets of the debtor can also be hypothecated to pledge something as a security without taking possession of it as security by the lender or other underwriter. The Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. This is to fulfill their inquisition operations. Keep that in mind. They came to steal our gold and silver. So they used fraudulent instruments, fraudulent foundation to do so. Now, there was no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal, which means it's unpayable. Pay attention to this and keep in mind with this next paragraph, with Ali, when did the prophet set up the old Canaanite temple?
1913.
All right, now pay attention to this. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages until the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees, stockholders held legal title. The U.S. citizen, tenant, franchisee was registered as a beneficiary of the trust via his or her birth certificate. In 1933, the federal United States hypothecated all of the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their subjects, the 14th Amendment citizen, to the Federal Reserve System. I don't need to go any further. Right there, you can see the operations of Prophet Noble Jolly, what he's doing, and I picked out as a countermeasure. You can see that the Europeans are operating on real fundamental history. and that they're operating as a countermeasure to no withdrawal. All you gotta do is pay attention to politics and the timeline. Now, so to counter this, you must be able to be claimed as an heir to the estate, because there's no living bodies that sign that Constitution. And guess what happens if you're not in your proper person? Any instrument that is created by any person living, blah, 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 that has no bloodline connection to the heirs of the estate of the land, which is Morocco, which is under operations of a de facto corporate entity, which has been dissolved, mind you, they have no claim of estate. And people are using the UCCs trying to claim their estate when they ain't even claim their own body. Are we clear?
Clear.
Now, but it doesn't mean that the UCCs doesn't operate in a proper venue of what they are. But it's operating for free men to regulate their commercial activities in contract law.
Islam, brother Emmanuel.
They're trying to institute the same thing in other countries, democracy.
Right.
They're saying it right there in the Treaty of Verona.
They're not trying to say
They're doing it.
They are doing it. They've been doing it.
They've been doing
And they disguising it under terrorist attacks and things, so they gotta go over and neutralize what other people doing in their country.
See, and so that's why because that's the what? The Crusades.
It's the Crusades.
All right.
Has always been.
So let me give you some substantive supports.
I have a question.
Now, keep in mind, when we're looking at constitutional law, i.e. the republic that they've been working to overthrow. So no state shall enter into any treaty, right, or confederation, grant letters of marque on reprisal, coin money, or issue bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin as tender in payment of debts. Now that's the law. Now under documented facts and by applying logistical and intelligent analysis, I don't believe the Supreme Court's ruling was observed in the House, like in the Hoover versus Allison case, in the EVI case, which most of your scholars make reference to. Now, again, I can't prove it, but I'm drawn to the fantastic, informational, and fact-supported conclusion that the United States government was executed in bankruptcy. Of course it is, but we just not taking the... And this was the timeline somewhere AD 1995-96. Again, now just as Congressman James Traficant had predicted. Now here momentarily is an interjection. We will dissect some of the vital parts of the text of Congressman James Traficant's speech addressing the House of Representatives. Now for study purposes, the actionable functionality and for law analysis, please do not hesitate to use a yellow highlight marker when you're going over the congressional records to note the primal and related sections of the speech which will give credence to the nature of and to the use and application of the word and position of reversioner in this particular instance. And this is for those who understand what reversioner is. That's where someone's reclaiming their estate. You can't reclaim an estate, you can't be a reversioner if you are not an heir. This is why you see Europeans that are aware of this. You don't see them file no UCC 1 financial statement. They're denouncing their U.S. citizenship, going to some other nation state, trying to nationalize, trying to open up some account. Why? Because you can't be a reversioner unless you're an heir. Therefore, you can't be a creditor unless you're an heir. Why? Because you're not dealing with money, you're dealing with transfers on an estate.
Islam, brother. Question.
Therefore, it's signature.
Signature, that's the money.
And it better be heirs to the Moors, because that's the land.
Okay.
Now, those who've known this information are starting to hit the wall. Doesn't mean they weren't sincere when they started, which means they keep on trying to reinvent the wheel that Crowley set for them, and you can't reinvent the wheel because there's rules to the game, and you can't slip in and start putting your hand in an estate that don't belong to you.
Right.
Are we clear?
Islam.
Property can't own.
Now, let's keep in mind this. All of the so-called states are actually countries. Now, keep in mind, for y'all do some research right now, do research a little later on about this little raid they had in Texas about a week and a half ago, where they've been meeting down there to secede. Because remember, the commercial codes, which are based on Moore's law of commerce, they're ancient. They became uniform in about 1966 or 68 when they blackmailed the representatives of Texas State Republic to go along their democracy fraud that they set up in 33, came out of the closet party with. That's when they became uniform. Because they had to kind of work this thing together so it don't fall apart. So first we must know how the uniform commercial codes come about. That's how it came about. That's number one. Now, number two, more and more in the last 25 years, the Europeans have been pushing uniform commercial codes because the middle class of the Europeans have been being dissolved. In other words, the phoenix bird is starting to eat its own tail. Now, the reason why, because the nations of the earth are starting to dump those UST bonds that are not backed by gold and silver. They're backed by birth certificates, marriage certificates, original manufacturer titles of origins on all people's cars and all this old stuff. Right? And Moors are nationalizing, which makes any name, i.e. connected to any estate, dead paper. Wizard of Oz, socks is curling up. So the Europeans going to tell you one thing, but another thing is really going on. Meanwhile, they're trying to sell as much of the estate as they can, which can't be done, but they're trying to do that, ETC. So what you have going on right now, nations of the earth are systematically coming together to isolate them. That's called the BRICS nations, and now the Mint nations, which are now converging. They're using all them UST bonds that are being held falsely as pristine to build infrastructure in other nation states, which is causing horrible problems. Because what they're going to tell them, you can't cash them T-bonds because they undermine themselves, so they got to eat it. So the Federal Reserve that was set up to counter an overdraft lead is now eating their own defecation. So it's only a matter of time, presently, that this stuff is going to go off the cliff. That's right. Now, I get to challenge anybody with a UCC to go make a claim in some estate. Because they ain't going to have the money. And they're not going to gather enough of them Federal Reserves to collect enough gold and silver because they came here to steal your gold and silver. They ain't giving it to you. And if they sell you some gold, it's going to have tungsten in it. So you better have a claim on the estate. If you don't do anything else, you better declare your nationality. Because what's happening right now is that the heirs to the estate are going to have to be proven. And the wealthy Europeans already know that. So I suggest y'all also go on your websites anywhere in the world. Just type in wealthy Americans denouncing their U.S. citizenship. They ain't Americans, they're Europeans running.
All right, peace, brother.
All right, go ahead, interject, brother.
No, it's a question. Islam,
Yes, Islam. I'd like to know if we are to enforce this Constitution. And behind the Constitution, are we supposed to live, I would say maybe backwards out of it, like as in rent and all these financial things that they want to confuse us with?
First thing I would ask you, when you say enforce this Constitution, which Constitution you making reference to?
Our Constitution, the Zodiac Constitution, which is the original as I know it.
You asking me, are we
to enforce
the Zodiac Constitution?
Are we to enforce, yes, the Constitution?
The Constitution is universal.
Right. So we are to enforce it.
About the other day, we're going to use the concept of human Constitution. All right, because the human Constitution is universal. It's nature's law, natural law. The Constitution is really not written. It's only written as a reference for man to comprehend.
Right. Let me interject this to help a lot of brothers and sisters, because like I always tell people, and I told years ago, that not rejecting the UCCs, but talking about the dangers of the UCCs is really to understand them. And the issue that I'm making is status. Now look at this. When we're looking at House Joint Resolution 192 and you look at the public law, the fact is they can only be discharged. Anytime they send a bill, it's not really a bill. It's a statement against the account. It's really a coupon. Now, in your proper person, if you choose to use that, for anybody, the reason why you don't see people getting successes in droves is because the very fact that they must put remedy in it with the public law, that means everything is only discharged anyway. And so when you take that coupon and discharge it, what it does, it undermines them, but yet it lets them off the hook from a legal perspective, but it undermines them at the same time. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is why they won't let anybody be successful with the UCCs. Not because the process that they presented doesn't have a path. Oh, it does. But they keep blocking it. But for someone who really knows how to use it, I don't reject it because it helps speed this thing out. In other words, what it really does, it crashes the system. And they're still going to be forced to have to name the heirs. That's what I have to say about the UCCs. Not against it, just qualifying and understanding about it that a lot of people don't know.
All right, and brother. So with the behind this now, how do we? I would say, how would we go to these institutions and let them adhere to our status then?
See, the first thing, you declare your nationality because they already know who you are. You don't have to go to those institutions. You know, and this is why we have to, see, this is basically just what we keep saying. As soon as the people start waking up and using these instruments and remedies, they start changing the rules. That's why we have to do an international suit, which means they don't honor anything. They gave you another deck to get you off the Supreme Law, and then soon the people start running after that, then they change the rules on that.
That's like with the lawyers, you know.
Enforce the Constitution. That's the Supreme Law of the land, right?
Right.
And they won't honor that. Then they give you a commercial venue and trick people and putting unalienable rights on it, then you want to preserve your rights and properties under Uniform Commercial Codes when that's protected under the common law.
Okay.
You see, they keep on trying to they keep giving you another deck and it's always marked. That's my point.
All right. Well, when it comes to the affidavits that we have, right? And if we now, would you suggest that we're able to use these affidavits against them along with their what are these things called?
Notary?
Yeah, along with their notary and along with our notary.
See, when you're in proper order, you don't need their. If you use their notaries,
right?
It's only as a token of affidavit on the affidavit, notifying them of their obligation. But you don't need it. That's what you have. That's why you have the Moorish Science Temple.
Okay, but
people they need to learn to respect their own government.
Right.
All of those are indications that the people are learning, but they're not yet competent.
Okay, but
that's fine if that's what they choose to do, because we're all learning. We've got to graduate. It's like anything else. But what it demonstrates is that we ain't there yet. And that's fine. I'm not knocking it.
All right.
I'm looking at an ongoing graduation battle.
Right.
But what we need to do is recognize that that's what it is.
Right. Exactly. Yes, of course. Islam. Well,
but our real power is when we clean up our own political forum, which is the Moorish Science Temple of America, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, etc., which are really regencies.
Right.
So what you have is that Moors have become, or allowed corruption to enter into, and they become reverse churches instead of the regencies that they really are.
Wow.
You understand? Nevertheless, we must clean them up.
Yes.
And so like when brothers and sisters like yourselves are coming, when the youth come in, we got to make sure they got a foundation to build on so that when the old heads get out of here, they can clean this mess up.
Islam. So, but would we have a problem with having their de factos support actual affidavits and actual law, real law?
See, keep remember,
would it be a problem?
Nothing they do is valid. All of this is an exercise of learning for us.
Right.
Anything that's created in color remains color. Any office under a colorable jurisdiction remains colorable. There is no de jure action that's necessary to refute a contract created in color. It remains void. It's just that the heirs ain't convinced. So our exercises is more or less to convince us.
And also to follow, to stay in harmony with the common law. Remember, your forefathers set up these ancient offices. And the even the affidavits that we're speaking about, referred to as also common law writs. Common law writs was put together by our forefathers. So therefore, the county recorders, once again, is those officers that are summoned and obligated to record our documents on demand. Has always been. That's not new. That's nothing that the modern day United States of America started for us to do.
That didn't come with them.
So we're not following their process. We got to realize that as a true national, as a sovereign, when we put affidavits together, that's an affirmation of truth, right, or affirmation of fact, right?
Right.
That's something that came from you.
Right.
When we sign and seal it, we're just attesting because we have authority from our regency. God raised us the sovereign power to govern your affairs. So that means that we're just witnessing and putting a seal from our government on it, saying that we attest that this person, natural person, came before us and made a testimony that they're going to do or not to do certain things. Now you take that document down to the public record and file it for the public record only for the purposes that other sovereigns can go back and verify that you made this public statement.
Well,
Well, notice, because remember what's happening here is that they're administering a state of heirs who are, for the most part, disconnected. They're suffering from cognitive dissonance. They don't know constitutional law. They don't know the common law, but they want to solve problems that have been sent upon them by virtue of these subject matters that they themselves are not astute in. Right. When the very fact of nationalization requires civic instruction or the enforcement of these instruments, which are ancient covenants.
That's a civic duty and a civic responsibility for us. So it's not that we're kind of like going and asking permission or going to a de facto corporation. The county clerk is ancient and organic. Whether or not they're organic in their concept or what they're coming to the office to do is irrelevant. You hold them to their constitutional responsibility. The fact that they're claiming to be and hold the integrity of the office, you hold them to that responsibility.
But you must know the office.
We know they de facto.
All right,
we know that they're operating under the state statutory. Right. We know that. But when we go there, we're not asking them to do a statutory filing. We're asking them to do a common law filing.
Yeah, okay.
So what you're doing is you're forcing them to do their job. Don't look at it from any subordinate position that they're doing something statutory, or we're asking them for permission. The reason why they don't want to file it is because you're telling them to do their job, which they don't want to do their job. So we put pressure on them to do their job. Don't opt out. Don't acquiesce to what they're doing.
Oh, I never do.
The UCC. Here's another thing with the UCC.
You've agreed to another form.
The UCC has its own filing department. So it's easy to file something in the UCC department. So a lot of Moors, because they're getting opposition in the county clerks, in the Register of Deeds department, they'd rather go to the UCC department because there's less resistance. So they're taking an affidavit from a common law venue and from a governmental and a republic perspective, and they're going to try to file it in the UCC's department. Only because it's easier to do so, because they get a file number. But that file number is construed as a commercial instrument and not as a common law instrument.
Or birthright instrument, which is meaning that it's like plugging your printer into your phone instead of a computer. You can say it's plugged in. And you will not get the results. Exactly. In other words, let's look at this, as we was talking about. It's like we was talking about last night. Let's look at this. Let's be honest, right? These corporate states, everybody's talking about how broke they are, right? Keep in mind, keep this in mind. For all the millions of natural people that file uniform commercial code instruments, right? Right? With these different corporate state entities, right? Which are known de facto orders, but they're generating revenues or energies, right? So they're going to them like they're the sovereign and asking for recognition and permission. right? So by them being heirs, they're assigning them in trust at the moment they transfer the document because they really have no authority, no seats at all. But being heirs and dealing with the trust, you can do oral and on the spot. And so what happens is they're actually giving them jurisdiction when they don't have it, and it gives them mandate when they've actually been dissolved. You've submitted yourself, right? Not in a rights, on a loyal venue, but in a commercial venue. So you're saying, I want to trade. I'm offering this, and I'm putting it in your hands to authorize this trade. Right? Because that's what you're really saying. You know, now they know already that all of the properties, all persons under the 14th Amendment, all corporate entities belong to Curia, have already been hypothecated. So it means any actions they take anyway, even at the inception of the action, it is already under hypothecation. That's why I read House Joint Resolution 192, right? And so now the only way that you can, in that venue, properly use uniform commercial codes is if, one, you're in your proper person, pre-established. Two, that you recognize all so-called bills are statements of account. You must reference the account of the estate in the processes of your action. It can't just be creditor-debtor argument. You must say, Moorish estate. Such and such person, Joe Belaski, doing business as governor of some province, etc. You are hereby assigned as trustee over my estate in this matter only, limited to this matter, and you're charged to discharge the estate as you've been doing any daggone way, with no misdirectives of benefit to yourself or any other parties unknown to me in this contract, etc. And if there is any transfers against this estate, you must let me know so that I can put my signature to it before you can make any other activities. Meanwhile, give me $5,000 for my time being down here. And that's how you know, if you understand what this is really, when you talk about discharge, how those things are really supposed to be used, that's how it's supposed to be used. And logically, they ain't gonna go with that because what you're doing, you're dismissing the administrator. Because that's all they're doing is administrating your trust.
Can't satisfy the debt.
You can't, because it ain't a debt. That's the whole point. See, this is the whole point. They're in debt, and they're trying to convert the debt they created under their fraud on you because you're the one with the estate. This is why people need to know the real history.
And when you agree to discharge a debt, what you're doing is agreeing to be in the position of a debt.
Exactly.
This is what you got to realize.
Because there is no debt to the legitimate republic.
But you're validating
the debt is the democracy order.
You're acknowledging it and validating it by saying, I agree that I owe you.
That's right.
Well, that
There you go.
needs to be discharged in the first place.
That's exactly correct. And now, and with the public law, they gave what they call the remedy, but that only applies to Europeans. See, the problem that has, whenever we're walking, and it's difficult, this is where the work comes in for all of us. And I know when most people understand that they're the easy way out. This is not easy. This is a formidable foe. Do you understand what I'm saying? And we must show ourselves worthy of the estate of our forefathers, because we have shown ourselves unworthy. When we walk into any of them offices, this is what they're seeing. Someone that's an heir to the republic form of government messing up our corrupt form. All of their systems are set up for the democracy order. All of their forms are colored to serve the democracy under the secret Treaty of Verona. There is no design for the republic because the design was to overthrow the republic. And so the uniform commercial codes, they won't say the commercial codes. They'll say the uniform commercial code, that U part, is their agreement tied to that secret Treaty of Verona to undermine you.
Tied into the 14th Amendment. Keep this in mind. Under the 14th Amendment, all human activities is considered commercial.
Yes, and all rights are considered crimes.
Remember this. This is very important because People don't understand their position on how they look at you when they first meet you.
Two things, dead and property.
But it's all commercial. It could be a crime, all crimes is considered commercial. All human activity, because all human activity is basically put on the market as collateral. So therefore it's already accounted for. So therefore they have to train you to act and think a certain way because they have a commercial interest in your activity. So they have to train you to act, to talk, to live, to eat, to work. They have to train you to behave because your activity benefits them. You understand that?
Interjection.
It's commercial.
Keep in mind, with the Rockefellers setting up the General Education Board in 1902, keep that in mind, and keep in mind their fundamental byline is to make the people docile. So this is why Drew Ali says what? When you send your children to them schools, they just learn how to jump through the hoops better.
It's training.
Yes,
I understand clearly what you mean, because they're not focused on us anymore. We demonstrated, just like Taj pointed out earlier, with all of the marks that we accept, we demonstrated that we are asleep. They're aiming for our children.
And just keep this in mind. When you see a lot of people, right, no matter what venue they're operating on, they have a tendency to operate on a venue that they have to convince the European of something, and the European already knows who you are. He's occupying Morocco. You know, our concepts of thinking that we got to make him understand something. No, we got to make our family members understand this. We got to convince ourselves. This is why a lot of times we tell Moors, a lot of things you do today, you will not be doing tomorrow. We're really in training. In concept to really clean the problem that we have really today is that things are accelerating around the world very quickly, and the Moors are behind the curve. Meaning that we've been treadmilling it for so many generations that how do you say, the last card is out of the deck, and we still playing like they're going to deal again.
That's part of the strategy.
Do you understand?
As soon as you catch up to something, they're going to move to the next.
This is where the nations of the earth are dumping their UST bonds to isolate them. In other words, the only way, the nations of the earth have taken the position that the only way to get rid of the beast is to not feed them anymore. A lot of things have not been done because they don't want us destroyed in the process either, but they need us because we're the heirs to the estate. But the world can't wait any longer because it's now contaminating the planet, and it's getting so bad that in order to stop the calamities that's going to hit the earth, that's going to affect everybody, they have to isolate the beast. So what you see that's taking place in y'all, now, what y'all got up there in Canada? Port Richey, what's the name of that port?
What's the port?
Port.
Harborfront?
Oh, Harborfront.
It's called Harborfront.
The seaport.
Yeah, it's called Harborfront.
Queens Key.
Yeah, well, guess what?
Queens Key. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, are they so-called having a strike?
Not yet.
Well, they should be, because it ain't really a strike, it's a blockade. Anyway, all up the west coast from Canaanland down to Mexico, there's a blockade.
East Coast
now
or West
go
Coast?
on the website and look at the Twin Cities.
East or West Coast, brother?
Los Angeles and
West?
the island,
DC, yeah.
Long Beach. And you will see that there's ships that are out to sea almost 3 miles out, averaging 1,000 feet long, and they're talking about longshoreman strike. No, it's a blockade.
Oh, yes.
The Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
Sacramaxim is the real name of that area. You got oil tankers that was sitting in the water since November that just left 3 weeks ago. There's drip. That's how they were offloaded. 650,000 gallons and 5 more ships coming in doing the same thing. They're choking it out. It's to give you all time, those of you who are conscious, to get your families prepared. Now, if you don't prepare your families, well, the prophet already told you, it's on right now, it's not coming, it's on as I speak. 29 ports on the West Coast. How much is 2 and 9?
11.
11, brother.
Huh?
11.
All right. So 9, 11 on the second one, huh? It's a countermeasure to what they have done. They're starving the beast. Now, we don't prepare ourselves, we're going to reap the same consequences. That includes the unusual pattern of weather you have here on the East Coast in North America. And I know y'all getting it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to choke them out. Now what you have is a lot of them that have already capitulated, and you got some of them in underwater prisons near the Caribbeans. And a few of the DUMBs, which are underground military bases here in North America, have already been sabotaged. Do you understand? They're going to choke them out. You've got a few holdouts, and you're probably going to have a few more middle class or middle level bankers taking flying lessons without weapons.
Yeah, that's happening.
But the deal of it is, they're going to stop feeding the beast, and we have to do what we have to do to come together and really operate government. And like the Grand Chief said, you know, what we have to do also is take this to the hedges and the highways, but we also have to do what? Get our temples in order to show competence in governmental operations to prepare to take our places amongst the affairs of men. It's another reason why we're hitting on these points.
Peace, brother. Yes, Islam.
Good. Islam Moors,
Islam.
do I have any more questions?
Anybody else?
Anybody else for question? Come ask away, man. Anybody? No.
Okay, somebody straight.
I wanted, if you got a few minutes after you finish, I'm gonna hit on the Clearfield Doctrine a little bit. Keep in mind that that's based on the 1871 principle.
Yeah, we're still here, boy. Go ahead.
All right. This is to clear up. Understand the UCCs are still based on this principle where people know what's going on. Hold on. Now the Clearfield Doctrine is named after a city area in Philadelphia area. That's where the case took place, but that's not the name of the person upon who that document is based. Now, the Clearfield Doctrine is this. Listen carefully, take notes, you all. The United States Supreme Court in the Clearfield Trust Company versus United States. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, which is Federal Reserve notes, and securities, which are checks, is concerned. And for purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. And analyzing the Clearfield Trust Company versus the United States, that's 318 U.S. 363-371, 1942, and the principles of law upon which the Supreme Court decision is based. The legal basis of de jure Constitution law upon which the Clearfield Doctrine is based is the fact that the unconstitutional actions via the support and sanctioning of counterfeit as committed by the oath-bound officers was fraudulent. Consequently, their formally valid authorities delegated to their offices, became null and void. Their limitedly delegated authorities' duties and responsibilities to uphold and to support the American Constitution had been breached. And all offices, acts thereafter done by them via the said offices and authorities were deduced to acts or actions done under a color of authority, a color of office, and under a color of law. And as a reference point in positive law, note Article 1, Section 10 of the American Constitution, and recognize the treasonous criminal violations made and committed against the American Constitution, being the supreme law of the land. And keep in mind, when you're talking about the American Constitution, you're talking about the human Constitution, a principle of law, maxim that's used universally on the planet. American Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin as tender in payment of debts, pass any bills of attainder, ex post facto law, or impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. No state shall, without the consent of the Congress, lay any impost or duties on imports or exports, except what may be absolutely necessary for executing its inspection laws, and the net produce of all duties and imposts laid by any state on imports or exports shall be for the use of the Treasury of the United States, and all such laws shall be subject to the revision and control of the Congress. And no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duties or of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Now, clearly and indisputably, officers and officials and representatives doing business as the United States government were, have, and been, and are presently in breach of trust against the offices they hold or held, and are indisputably guilty of misprision and have been found wanting in their failures to enforce the American Constitution. And such criminal acts and breaches of trust are not only declared by law to be treasonous, but the said breaches stand as stark established evidence that the said officers and representatives at large reneged against their official oaths and failed to sustain integrity in their fiduciary duties. And theretofore, they have abandoned their offices and have abridged their obligations to the trust as vested in them via their seats and in the de jure constitutional republic's government. In laws, such violating acts, whether executive, legislative, or judiciary in nature, are referred to as a breach of trust, arbitrary, and misprision of treason. And when at any time, for instance, the public officers, public servants, or politicians entrusted with the duties of any public office forsake, desert, or bridge, etc., or violate his or her official oath, which is lawfully required of all public offices, and such an actor or actors have abandoned the powers and authority vested in the said office, and at any such instance, the perpetrator loses all and any authority or sovereignty vested in him or her by the limitedly granted jurisdictional powers and trusts vested in the seat of the office. Essentially, such an actor or actors have abdicated and abandoned the office and officers held by them, and have lost the limited powers granted in them. At such time or venture, the actors by his or her own unclean hands and actions becomes not a public officer or public servant, but like any other private person is void of any authority to act or to authorize any powers or duties vested in the abandoned position of public trust or public office. Just knowing that, you see the con of anybody getting them to apostille their so-called UCC. Meaning that it is no different than you keep going, somebody punched the guy at the gas station in the eye, locked him in the bathroom, and he's out there pumping gas, and he's not paid for my gas. You stick your card in there, and you see the numbers and everything else. Whatever's going in the pocket is not going in your account. Then they take unauthorized persons to verify something that's dealing with an allodial account on an allodial right of property, commercial transfer. That's under the Roman Curia of the Popes. What you should be doing is charging them with, I think they call it, their absconding taxes, because they're members of the Roman Curia and they're not reporting. And keep in mind too, look this up. Pope Francis ends the Christian doctrine of discovery. That's what they've been using as an authority. Keep that in mind. And so therefore, I'm saying over and over again, I understand the people, all of us, looking for remedy. But I'm also showing that not what we say, but what their own law says and their own documents say, that when we're going after, when we're going after them thinking that we're getting remedy under the UCCs, they're still playing us. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't do them. I'm saying we're still getting played.
Right.
So if there's anything that we should be doing is enforcing the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, national and international. And this is why, by necessity, that we plan to do the international suit to make sure that the clerks file our proper papers, our proclamation, because what it does is establish the heirship. That's the reason why they're upset. Because once you establish the heir, all of the other stuff they're doing is dead. Because what you're dealing with is trust law, and trust law deals with estate law. And when the heirs show themselves competent, there ain't no hoops to jump through. They must transfer the estate.
Law.
We just got to make sure that the Moors are competent. That doesn't dismiss anybody's position. It's just giving everybody a more clear view from a law position to look at this whole stuff.
Islam, thank you, Mark.
Islam, brother. Any other questions?
I think we're good. I think we're clear.
Islam. So
love you all.
So we
give it up for the family, please. Second.
Islam. Question.
Islam, Mark.
About the issue with county clerks as far as
Second Sunday of the month.
they're not respecting.
Second Sunday of the month.
I look at it like two issues. One, dealing with intelligence, and also another one dealing with courage. How when we present ourselves to them, where we're not asking them to do something for us, is where they have to do it.
Be obligated.
It's not like we're asking them.
Exactly.
And a lot of times, the way we look at it is like you're in a position of authority.
Yeah.
And this is what the grand sheet keeps saying. We have to understand, if the people in general don't know these people's obligations, this is why the subordinate are interchanged. And when they see that, it's like a wolf smelling chicken blood. When they recognize, you come and you give me a piece of my own peanut butter sandwich. They already know that you don't understand what the prophet didn't work to. And at that time you're incompetent. Because remember, for someone to be descendable, they must be competent. Minority is a legal word for grown-ups that have the mentality of minors. And our people have been told by their leader guys that it means numbers of Afrocentricity. It means incompetent. It's a legal status position.
It's already, it should have been established that the difference between minority and majority, it's the majority that's the minor in their thinking and don't have a clue. So this is why they're classified as minorities, because they know it's more of us than them, but it's more of us that don't know. So they classify us like children. And it's the minority that is the majority that has a clue.
I'm gonna give me the black law. I'm gonna show you the relationship. Go ahead.
It's the minority that's the majority that has a clue of who you are and how everything works. So they use what you don't know against you, and they call you minorities. That doesn't do with skin complexion. It's a
political ban. Islam. also, in closing, back to the county recorders and the filings are affidavits. Now, trust me, I've been really stirring on this for a lot of years, and I don't budge from this department. We have to exercise our right to redress our grievances. The fact that we have been branded Negro, Black, and Colored is a grievance. We've been injured, we've been deprived, the whole nine. So therefore, when you deprive us of a right, when you have been injured, you have a natural right to redress your grievances. All right? Now, in law, that's done within what they call a civil action or a suit. So just follow me on this, and we're going to have, for the next class we do, Grand Sheik, this is going to set the thesis for that.
All right.
When you are proclaiming your nationality, you are doing multiple things other than just declaring what your nationality is for the public record. Listen to me, this is where Moors are misunderstanding this process. But you're also rescinding contracts. You're also disassociating yourselves with the straw man. You're just claiming the straw man.
While claiming an interest of information on it without claiming to be it or sanctioning it. That's the next real position.
You're also establishing your trust. You're also tying yourself back to the citizenship of the land.
To the Constitution of federal government.
You're tying yourself back into part and parcel of freedom. You're doing so many things, but it's a civil action. It's a suit. It's a complaint that you're doing. You're initiating a suit.
And claim it's also a reversion. Write this down. A reversion of estate, quote unquote. And look that up.
Now, I know you got a question. Just hold that thought. Let me get through this because this is very important. It's a process that has to be done to proclaim your nationality. Moors look at this as they're changing their name, and that's not what you're doing. You are proclaiming your nationality. Within the process of proclaiming your nationality, you have the right to correct or change the name that you ex-rel or used to be known as. That's a right. They also give that privilege for other foreigners, foreign-born subjects, that come and naturalize into the United States or to the U.S. because they're not naturalized into the United States. They're only naturalizing into the U.S. private corporation. Keep in mind that. Anybody naturalized. That comes under the 14th Amendment. That has nothing to do with the land or the government of the Republic.
Or anything organic.
Exactly. So now, when they naturalize, they're also given the opportunity, but it's under the privilege now, to change their name. This is why you see Chinese people who come over here and set up shop, and then they go by the name of John.
Yeah.
John Wang, John Cheng. Bob. Tony. You understand? These are not Chinese names. But they have these names because when they was naturalized, that's automatically a part of the process that you're given them, and they even encourage you to do so that they can westernize you. Because it ain't so complicated, and therefore it's hard to communicate with the Americans. The ones they suggest that you adopt a so-called English name. That way you can get acclimated to this society a little bit better. This is how they talk to them.
And in doing so, what it does, it hypothecates it to the Pope under the Secret Treaty of Verona, looking like they're just throwing it for convenience.
Absolutely, because name and property go together. So their jurisdiction and their claim of property also has claim on language and names. This is another reason why we choose a name or an appellation that's more in harmony with our ancient forefathers. Because when you do that, what you do is you break the relationship and the tie with the slaveholder. You understand? And the slave master, who suggested those names in the first place. So as long as you hold on to the name, like the prophet says, I don't know why people keep clinging to the names and what? And principles that are what? Unconstitutional or delude to slavery. Certain names that we have used or are still using delude to slavery. You got to understand, slavery being in a condition, not the Slavic, but the condition of slavery means being subordinate to another. That's what that means. So anyhow, speeding up the process here. So proclaiming your nationality, we're declaring that through affidavits. Affidavits is an affirmation from the individual, from the natural person, declaring himself to be free and equal. Now what you're doing is, you're also showing allegiance to the constitutional body of power that you're declaring. It's also referred to as an oath of allegiance. You're taking an oath to be considered free and equal. You have to declare that through what they call affirmation or oath of allegiance. That's a process that Abraham Lincoln started to implement before they took him out. He did it under the process of what he called it an oath of allegiance, but it was a pardon for being, they said, for the so-called slaves, or what he said, the Negro, blacks, and colored, the so-called slaves, in order them to be considered free and equal, once they was released from the plantation or from that idea of slavery, they now had to take an oath of amnesty. An oath of amnesty, which is the same as an oath of allegiance. That oath of amnesty was for the individual who was so-called free from the, or manumitted from the slaveholders, for themselves to take their own oath of affirmation to support the Constitution of the United States. Because like Drew Ali said, in order to be a citizen, you must declare or proclaim your free national name. He said being born here does not make you a citizen. One has to proclaim it. Proclaiming it is the same as declaring it. That is a oath of amnesty or oath of allegiance. For one to be a citizen of a constitutional construction, they must declare and take an oath to support the Constitution of that body politic. It's the same thing. So he's saying as Moors, just because we are the heirs of this land, we must declare that through a lawful process called oath of allegiance. So our affidavits, that no matter how they word it, Declaration of Nationality, Proclamation, but however they word it, the process is the same, the concept is the same. We are taking an oath of allegiance to support our domestic Moorish government, body politic, under the divine constitution, and we're also taking an oath of allegiance to support the free national constitution of the United States of America. Until you take an oath of affirmation to do that, you cannot be considered a citizen of that national constitution. Drew Ali said it, Abraham Lincoln said it. You gotta understand that. So the documents serve as an oath of allegiance. Even within the so-called naturalization process, once again, they have what they call a certificate of citizenship. So also that's what your proclamation document is serving under the Republic though. Their certificate of citizenship is still under the color. Absolutely, under the democracy. The citizenship just means member. Just so you understand that. Citizenship means member. So when they say citizen of the U.S., what they're saying is member of the U.S. But that's a corporation. That has nothing to do with nationalization. That has nothing to do with government. That has nothing to do with land. You're only becoming a member of that corporation. And then that's when they give you privileges according to their corporate discretion. That's the only thing that's doing. Speed it up. When we go to the county clerk's office, the county clerk being a constitutional officer, right, elected by we the people, within the county jurisdiction of government in which we live, that's called local government. What did the prophet say? He says we must declare or proclaim our nationality within the government in which you live. You don't live in the United States of America government. That's a national conception. The state, you can say you live within the geographical territory of the state, but that's still broad. But when he say local government is known through your county. Your county is more ancient than your state. Did everybody get that? Your local government is your county government. That's your first government. The county predates the state. So when we proclaim and do stuff on a governmental level, it really is done on a local.
Oh.
Read that quick.
That was definitely them. Yeah, let's call it that. So let's just do our close out since that might be it.
Remember, we discussed that. Because he wanted to do the grades.
By on the left, two on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom.
And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
And
my salvation. By night. And by day. Through his holy prophet. Noble Jew Ali. Islam. Rome must fall.
Rome must fall.
Rome will fall.
I didn't hear it drop.
You hear it already. Sound like someone else dropped.